Hello, people. Let's see what's going on here. Good morning. I have Alon Mizrahi blocked on Twitter, so that should tell you something. Oh, I know that guy. He was on whatchamacallit. He was on he was on Democracy Now. Yeah, that should tell you what I think about him. I know you want to jump on, Jan. What was I doing? I was finishing reading this. You will find this incredibly funny. There are no to execution Tuesdays campaigns going on in Iranian prisons. Oy, do I want to let Claire on? Claire, you have to turn on your camera if you want me to let you on. Let's run Persia remotely from a Los Angeles City Council meeting type setting. Don't think so. It is hopefully not for that long, because I am going to be picking up my CPAP machine later today. Claire, how are you doing?
Hello.
You're not going to leave your camera on, Claire?
I guess you don't want to talk to me. You're finding an excuse not to have me on. You know it's me.
It's not a question of knowing it's you. It's a question of seeing your expressions of relating together.
Relating. You've seen me before. Maybe you don't want to see me eating.
Oh, you don't want to see me eating? Is that what you're saying? Claire's like, Jacob, stop streaming while you're eating. Is that it?
No, you can eat. I'm not having a problem with that. But in the meantime, I think we can talk. Don't you think?
Sure. My dad says I shouldn't eat while I stream.
Well, I think, it's annoying watching people eat. And you think, well, maybe they're just, spending their eating time talking to you, which is maybe not so respectful, because you don't see, TV, radio people. Well, they're not supposed to eat while they're, broadcasting live, are they? But
I mean,
we're just shooting the shit anyway.
I like meeting people for a meal and sitting together. So I only find it annoying when people eat with their mouths open. Like, that's disgusting.
Yeah. The thing is, you retain a bit more, mystery and dignity, and maybe people listen to your words a bit more. They can't see you, do distracting things.
Nobody listens to me, Claire.
Them.
Nobody listens to me.
Nobody listens to me either. But why don't they?
Because everyone has their own feelings about things. And good morning, Jason. Jason, you should jump on. They have their own feelings about things and the way they look at things. And I mean, some people are followers, right? So you've heard of the Asch experiment?
No, what's that?
I wonder if I can show this video without getting a copyright strike. Let's try it. Asch experiments.
Well, I mean, people should be persuadable by facts and logic.
This is a very old, very long. No, people are not persuadable by. Vast majority of people understand very little about facts, very little about logic.
I know.
You could hold your breath from now until the end of the world, and facts and logic will not rule. That's not how human beings function. Okay, so it's not a very long video. It's 18 years old that it's been put up. And so here, I will give proper credit so they can't get mad at me. And I doubt they own the copyright to it anyway, because it's a very old video. But we'll see what happens. I am going to risk it and play this video.
An experiment is not a public opinion poll. It examines behavior under the pressure of social forces, as the experiment of Solomon Asch reveals.
The experiment you'll be taking part in today involves the perception of lengths of lines. As you can see here, I have a number of cards, and on each card there are several lines. Your task is a very simple one. You're to look at the line on the left and determine which of the 3 lines on the right is equal to it in length. All right, we'll proceed in this order. You'll give your answer.
Only one of the people in the group is a real subject, the 5th person with a white T-shirt. The others are confederates of the experimenter and have been told to give wrong answers on some of the trials. The experiment begins uneventfully as subjects give their judgments.
2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3,
But on the third trial, something happens.
2, 2, 2, 2, 2,
The subject denies the evidence of his own eyes and yields to group influence.
1,
Ash found subjects went along with the group on 37% of the critical trials. But he found through interviews that they went along with the group for different reasons.
1, 1,
They must be right. There are 4 of them and 1 of me.
1,
This subject's yielding is based on a distortion of his judgment. He genuinely believes that the group is correct.
1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2,
I know they're wrong, but why should I make waves?
2,
In this case, the subject knows he is right, but goes along to avoid the discomfort of disagreeing with the group. Here, the distortion is at the level of his response.
2, 2, 2, 2.
In the previous experiment, the naive subject stood alone against the group. In this variation, Ash gave the naive subject a partner, here seated in the third position, who also gives the correct response.
1, 1, 2, 1, 2.
With a partner, yielding drops to only 5% of the critical trials compared to 37% without a partner. Although subjects report warmth and good feeling toward the partner, they typically deny that he played a role in their own independence. The partnership variation shows that much of the power of the group came not merely from its numbers, but from the unanimity of its opposition. When that unanimity is punctured, the group's power is greatly reduced. Sometimes we go along with a group because what they say convinces us they are right. This is called informational conformity. But sometimes we conform because we are apprehensive that the group will disapprove if we are deviant. This is called normative conformity. The strength of the normative factor is shown in another variation carried out by Ash. In this variation, the subject is told that because he had arrived late, he would have to write his answers. Subjects in this private response experiment are exposed to the same amount of misleading information as other subjects, but they are immune from any possible criticism by the group.
1, 1, 1.
And this enormously reduces the pressure to conform. Conformity drops by 2/3. Ash's experiment is a classic. It reveals how people will deny what they see and submit to group pressure. It allows us not only to observe conformity, but to study the conditions that increase or reduce its occurrence.
So, Jacob, do you prefer to associate with cattle or independent thinkers? I can't hear you. I can see your lips move.
Sorry, I said that there's no such thing as an independent thinker. Nobody thinks independently of other human beings.
Well, yeah, but the video that you just showed shows that some people
are much more
independent than others.
Right. Some people are much more conformist than others, and
Mhm.
if everyone was nonconformist, then we would never be able to do anything. So a certain percentage of the population being conformist actually is what allows society to function. Like a certain number of people just go along, and I think one of the problems of Western individualism is this idea that every single person, and I blame Martin Luther, can be I stand here and can do no other type BS, where we think that people who follow are necessarily dumber or worse or less ethical or less useful to society, or I think actually the people who are willing to go along with what is best for the group are very good people, and we should stop trying to marginalize them.
Well, it's actually the independent thinkers that are being marginalized, as your experiment has shown, the one that you just showed us. So, but I would be happy to admit that sometimes we conform and sometimes we rebel, and so the only thing at issue is our process of reasoning.
I mean, reasoning is just one of the ways we make decisions, and it's not it's not how most people make decisions. And
I mean, the
no,
sheep are
Moses
sheeple,
Moses was different.
and cattle are, well, meant for slaughter, right?
Yechezkel, no, that's not true, Claire. Yechezkel, Shraga, Halevi, Mashlomcha.
Before I say before I say anything, I want to just make sure I get Claire's permission. I don't want to like bother her with like my brevity and talking too much. So I want to just make sure she's ready.
You're being long-winded again. I wish you get straight to the point. But carry on beating about
There
the
you go.
bush. It's not very Jewish, you know. It's a very Gentile thing
There's
to go
two
around all the houses pretending to agree with
Claire,
everybody.
I am not going to allow you to filibuster.
I'm
Chezi
not
gets to speak
filibustering. I'm
because
telling you exactly what.
so Chezi gets to speak
I didn't even
because
say anything yet.
Chezi says important things that people want to hear. You don't get to speak because nobody wants to hear you, Claire. So go ahead, Chezi.
It's okay. All I wanted to say was two notes of the that came to mind from the video you just put on.
Yeah.
First of all, we say in Exodus and Shemot, "Lo rabim harot," right? Do not go according to many who go according to evil, right? Just because 1,000 people are jumping off the bridge, we're told definitely not to do that. So to push against being cattle, and the Rambam, Maimonides, in Hilchot Deot, I think, talks about how because we're aware that humans are very impressionable, therefore we must make sure we are living in proper communities, having the proper friends, just to make sure we are safeguarding ourselves from that exact problem. So it's less about an issue of us being cattle. It's more about, I mean, like in a certain sense, like Claire was saying, it's who you associate with. You have to be selective with that.
Yeah, I mean it's this is my project of distributed cognition, right? Secure distributed cognition. That's why, like, when Claire was allowed on my Discord, she was allowed in one channel, which was hidden behind a lot of things, so that not many people had to be polluted by her bad ideas. But at the same time, I mean, yeah, like it's
Jacob,
nice.
Sorry, there's an alarm.
Be safe. It's nice having a little bit of chelbana, a little bit of the bitter herb in your incense. Claire, all your ideas are bad ideas.
Name one and say why.
Secularity is a terrible idea because there is a God, and anybody who doesn't realize that is kind of not really thinking.
Secularism is what atheists like to think is their law, but there is an area of union with certain Noahide laws, such as murder, theft, sexual offences. Yes, I think
the Noahide laws
agree that they would rather not have
the Noahide laws.
legal.
The Noahide laws are predicated on the idea that there is a God. If you don't believe there's a God, you can't be a Noahide.
That's fine, but okay. So Noahide laws -2. So we're down to 5, and and
so, like I said, secularity is a terrible idea. So you agree secularity is a terrible idea?
No, I'm saying even atheists agree that there should be laws forbidding murder, theft, and rape. Yes?
I noticed Jacob has this thing where he frequently asserts anyone who sees things differently, right or wrong, are either stupid or not thinking. Yeah.
So you've abandoned any attempt to be impartial or fair?
Oh, I attempt to be fair, but that doesn't mean that I let stupidity run free on my channel. I'm not going to do that.
Did I say anything stupid?
Yes, you said lots of things stupid. Why do you
Not
think I had
us.
to put you in the background?
No, I think you're
Claire,
just
Claire, there's a
doing this
reason.
because Ezzy came on and you wanted to show him favor and
Yes,
wish to lower
that
me
is
in
my
status.
entire
And
project.
that is how you roll. You
Yes,
you do
that is
you're not
precisely how I roll. My entire project is about amplifying people who make sense and who do good things in the world, and decreasing the amount that people pollute the environment with stupidity and bad ideas, etc. And so, you know, Paul. Wow. Should I?
I just missed Claire. You know,
No, she's in the background. I pull her off to stop her from filibustering. I'm sure she wants back on, but like, so I pull her off when I want to actually say something, and then I pull her back on when I need the bear to you know dance. Yeah, exactly. Yes. How would you deal with somebody like Claire?
I really, you know, I want to rando her. I need some time, but I want to rando her because I really want her story.
She won't tell you her story. So her story, from best I've been able to gather, including doing searches, is she was married in a Christian church to a Christian. Yes, I think that's where her crazy ideas come from. And he ended up divorcing her. Yeah. And she became a single mother. And that's the story behind, like, but I can't bulverize her every time I meet her, right? So, but yeah, when you actually care about someone, and I try to care about Claire just like I try to care about all my sheep. You actually try to listen to them and hear. So here, this is a thing Christians don't often find surprising. So rabbis often tell new husbands to pay attention to what God says to Abraham about Sarah with regard to Hagar. So there's this line where God says, listen to her voice. Okay? And the rabbis make a very, what's called a diuk, a precise inference from God saying, they say, God says, listen to her voice, not her words. And so this is considered great husbandly advice, to listen to your wife's words. I mean, voice, not her words, right? It's not what she's saying. It's the fact she's saying and who she is, and right. So I think you have to practice that with a lot of people. And actually, so in the 18-fold prayer, the Amidah that we do, towards the end is Shema Kolenu, listen to our voice, where we ask God to listen to our voice. And the rabbis say a similar thing about that blessing. It's like, God, please listen to our voice, not our words, because thy will be done, you know? And so I think it's incredibly important, especially with someone like Claire, to listen to their voice, not their words.
Well, I think that's exactly right. I mean, we're human beings, which means we are, you know, Jonathan Haidt had a point. You've got the rider and the elephant, and the rider is up there chatting away, but the elephant is directing where the rider goes. And, you know, that's part of what I see in the TLC is someone like Claire, someone like Nathan. They, you know,
yeah.
They
although
should
although he posted on Substack a kind of a sort of apology,
sort of
which
apology.
I think I was glad to see, but I still think it would be best if he was arrested.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. But you know, people who come around.
Did we lose PVK?
No,
I'm here.
he's here.
Oh,
You're
okay.
not here.
What's
Oh,
for
boy.
breakfast?
What's for dinner?
Dinner? Where are you?
He works. No, he's still in the Los Angeles area, but he works nights, and he has been for months.
Oh,
Yeah. So he probably just got back from work. Yeah.
Oh, I know what it's like to work nights. It's not fun. It is fun in a little way, but it gets old. So anyway, but people who keep coming around and they keep getting banned, they keep getting blocked because of they struggle to how can I say it in a nice way, make productive connections within the conversations. And so but they keep coming around. They might churn a little bit, they might go away for a little while, but they keep coming back. And of course, part of the reason they come back is because we'll tolerate them, and in fact we like them and grow to love them, and they become a part of us, and they sense that. But they also, you know,
I don't grow to love them. I am very serious when I say I love you, but only because my father said I must.
That's insane. Well, I don't know. I actually probably it speaks of my own pathology, but I do actually grow quite fond of them, and so and for that reason, for that reason, I'd love to. I mean, even if she just wants to tell me the story offline, which would be fine. I want to know her story because, as you well know, so many of our hurts, they're, we own them honestly. Well, maybe we're not honest about them, but we come by them honestly. And this world is a hard, cruel, dark place often. And I'm not one to say that there isn't evil. But evil is the kind of thing that we tend to succumb to.
Yes, but I'm doing my final internship before I graduate with my master's in social work. Yay! And I am what?
Congratulations!
Oh, thank you. And I am currently working in locked facilities. Yeah. And one thing that I keep on telling my fellow interns is the gates of hell are locked from the inside.
Yes.
And they can really be locked from the inside.
Oh, yes.
Very much so.
Yes. And we do not have the keys.
I think we have the keys. I think we just refuse to open the door. I think we refuse to open the door.
Wow. I have to compliment Yosef, that video you sent me. Oh, it's good. I bought her book.
That looks awesome.
Really wonderful. So thank you.
She all yeah, you're welcome. She also writes fiction, evidently, that's like tied to all this. So there's like a whole other side. She has like the academic side and then the fiction side. I've heard they're good too.
Wow, I'm not surprised. She's a natural storyteller.
Who is this she?
Sorry, I sent Paul a video. I also put in BOM of a professor who studies the Renaissance at the University of Chicago. That just has like an excellent synthesis and narrative of how all this fits together. But I will say, Anthony, who's better read historically than I, has said that her book was a little controversial, and there are some there's some stuff about it like not everyone agrees with for her takes, but for the most part, I thought it was excellent. And also, like, I want to know more about. She mentions a paper or something at the end of that talk, there's like the lab in the basement of the Vatican that was trying to validate and do peer review on all of these like new scientists during the Renaissance. Like they wanted to like be the authorities on truth, and that like the Inquisitors are working in the Vatican trying to replicate Galileo's experiments. And they're trying to replicate who's the one they execute? Starts with a B.
Yeah, Bruno.
I can't remember the scientist.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Bruno. He was working with he was the one tracking the moons, right? So the one scientist they actually executed in the Inquisition, but they're like actually trying to replicate their experiments. So someone like she jokes like the Vatican invented peer review.
Eric Weinstein would laugh at that one. Yeah,
excellent. Yeah, she has some really cool stuff. So I'm excited to kind of explore.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Jacob, what are your thoughts on Eric Weinstein now?
I still every once in a while like text with him. I'm still a huge fan of Eric Weinstein. Brett seems to kind of have lost his mind. So the algorithm has changed on X, so now I'm really screaming into the void because barely anybody sees any of, despite the fact I have over 1,000 followers, which is shocking. Like my tweets get like 2 or 3 views at the most. But so one of that's why I end up reading my tweets on air. So one of my most recent tweets, where was it? Was okay. What? Why can't I find this tweet? Anyway, I said that I still think. Oh, the fact is, I still believe that Brett Weinstein and Tucker Carlson are very genuine people who are very skeptical. The problem is that the time for skepticism has passed. Is now time to build knowledge and wisdom. Their skepticism has turned destructive, and I think that really is what's going on. They're natural contrarians, very much like I am, and I think there's a point at which you have to put your contrarianism aside and be like, well, I don't actually need to be spending my time thinking about whether Mossad really did fund Epstein, or whether whether it was a deliberate hit on the girls' school in Iran. Like there's a point at which you gotta be like, okay, let's go with the official narrative, as flawed as it may be, and live our lives. And they seem to have gone way off the deep end. So that's Brett Weinstein. But okay. You asked about Eric. Eric, I mean, he's trying his best for the stuff that he's doing, and he's doing a lot of good stuff. And I remain one of his adamant supporters. But the first time I met him, I still have the picture of the first selfie I took with him. And I think it might be the only selfie I've ever taken with him, but I still have that picture. I said to him, Eric, you have to let us help you. And many times, we have had that discussion. He has a very, very hard time letting other people help him, giving people an opportunity and a manner in which to help him do what he's trying to do.
You heard about my interaction with him at ARC, didn't you? I've told the story.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about it. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember anything distinctly about it, but it's probably because nothing surprised me about it.
At the first ARC meeting, it was possible to meet people because there are only 1,500, and they'd still had a 2-tier system. And of course, I was with the not the top tier, the second tier.
Polloi.
Yeah, and so I'd often have this. I had this experience both with Brett and Eric, where when they see me, because their brain recognizes my face because of my commentaries. The first thing in the brain is like, oh, a friend.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the brain catches up and like, oh, he's this annoying guy from the internet who has comments about me. And so, my exchange with Brett and Heather was cordial and lovely, and they were very, very nice about the whole thing. Eric, I talked to him briefly. Eric, of course, Brett and Heather. Eric leaves himself in some ways a little bit more open to the public, and he's not with his family or his wife. He's usually alone, so he's more available. And Eric clearly likes engaging people and randos, and so I said, well, I hope I was at least fair. No, you weren't fair. Oh, okay. Well,
Eric actually came to our local Jordan Peterson meetup once.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so I said,
and bought everybody a beer.
I said, I'd like to hear how I was not fair. If you want to tell me, I want to tell you. I said, okay. But I understand when you get to a place like ARC, everybody's head's on a swivel looking for a bigger name. So I said, well, if you really want to have this conversation, when I'm available and you look more available, I'll find you and we can have it as long as you really want to have it. He says, I really do. I said, okay. So then at one point, I was available and he seemed relatively free. So I went up to him and I said, okay, how about now? Okay. So, so then we, it's a big noisy room. So we kind of found a little corner where we could talk a little bit more in depth. And, it was pretty clear, which was completely understandable, that he didn't, he recognized me probably as some commenting troll on the internet that had to do with religion. And so he went into a pretty standard spiel about, how he's not like all the other atheists. He respects religion, and which is true, I've heard him say it many times. Whenever he says something anywhere close to religious, people will send me a clip, which is great. And then it was like, I'm not going to argue with where you stand with respect to the church or anything. I'm not an evangelical trying to convert you. And then he sort of flipped into the doomerism, where, what people need to know is that, we are so screwed, we are so cooked, and nobody knows it. Then he sort of flipped into Cassandra mode, which is what he's sort of been doing more and more of lately, so then he started going down that road, and it was like, this conversation isn't going anywhere. So then I said, well, I'll tell you what, would you mind if I just said a prayer for you? And he said, I would like that. So then I just put my hand on his shoulder and I prayed tried to pray a nice prayer, give him a nice blessing for his family and his future, et cetera, et cetera. And he thanked me for it, and that was it. But, his doomerism, well, is it possible that we blow ourselves up? Yes.
Allow me to explain to Mark what Cassandra mode is. Cassandra was this Greek prophetess who went around warning people only to be not believed when all the things she warned about happened. And trust me, even, oh, by the way, we love you, Cassandra.
Yeah, not that Cassandra.
Not that Cassandra. I have been warning about things for 25 years that keep on, like, I have been watching the slow motion train crash for a good 25 years. You can go back to the Daily Trojan, search my name, and find when I was in college writing articles warning people. As an undergrad in USC, like, don't do this. You are going to destroy the world.
But at least, Jacob, we can have conversations with you. You talk about lots of things.
Well,
but Eric is like, and then he's.
Hold on. Okay, you really are not fair to Eric. You really are not. Let me explain, right? Eric has a very small part of his life, which is his public image. That is when he feels he must. Eric is a very private person, and people don't realize this. Eric is also hates being the center of attention, hates people. Yes, people don't believe this. They're like, oh, why are you getting so much attention if you... And he hates it. He hates it. My name is my name. You can... Oh, you have to go into the archives. I'm sorry, the old archives. The currently it's thing. But and they made it hard because Fatorecci, I should be the only Fatorecci. I don't think any of my cousins ever wrote for the Daily Trojan. Even though I did have a cousin Jacob go to USC. That's a whole other thing. Won't get into it. But no, Eric, and you just have to believe me. Eric is incredibly private, hates attention, and the only reason he actually gets involved is when he feels like he has to, in order to stop the world from ending for his son and his daughter, who are the two most important people in his life, who he spends his everything, and he's kept pretty much as insulated and away from the public as possible. His daughter's name, I still don't know. His son for a while wanted to do a channel, and Eric being supportive was supportive of that. But so Eric, this is like, when Eric comes to ARC, he's there on a mission and he wants to go home and he wants to be with his wife and his kids and his friends, and he doesn't want to argue with anyone and he doesn't want to criticize anyone, and he really, really hates, it gets so and so he's a very emotional and private person. And especially, I have to say, you keep on saying this, and I've said this to you, as long as I've known you, I think. Eric, they do Shabbat's Friday night dinner at his house every Friday night.
I believe that.
And Eric, in his own way, is very religious. So when you say every time he says a religious thing, as far as Eric's concerned, everything he says is a religious thing, especially when he goes out in public. Because when he's speaking in public, right, he's doing it because he feels it's his religious obligation towards his community and his people and the future, etc.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing the man because he's religious. The strange thing. So then,
you seem to criticize him for not being religious enough.
No, that's not. The funny thing about Eric is he, with his. And I believe he's sincere, but in ARC 2, he's finally given a time on stage. And of course, what does he do with it? He sort of begins the talk.
It was his best speech ever. What are you talking about?
It probably is.
Yes.
But in some ways, he is a creative thinker. And so there have been times, I think, more back to the IDW days when I thought he was more helpful, because he does have creative ideas and they sort of spin off of him. And there's a lot of good stuff in those creative ideas. But when he sort of gets into this Cassandra mode, and then he basically seems to intimate that I have this formula that will get us to the stars.
No.
And none of the astrophysicists will listen to me.
No. That's not that I think, okay. Eric is a great communicator, much better than most, which is why I think too many people expect a sort of perfection out of him. Right? So this is the reason why Jordan Peterson was never disappointed me. This is why you never really disappointed me too much, is because I recognize people are people, right? And Eric is a human being, and he's imperfect in many ways, right?
As are we all.
But he is far better than most. And when Eric comes to Ark, he's like, okay, I am being Frodo. I am leaving my Shire to go and throw this ring into the fire and go back home. He really feels that. Like he's in
you.
Frodo mode.
I believe you. And he can manage his life and his opportunities the way he wishes, but I think I'd love to see, I think he could use the time to give us more than just this laser focus on his Hail Mary to end our.
Why do you think he owes you that? He wants to go back home to the Shire. He wants to go back home to the Shire.
All right. Well,
yeah.
So I know you've got a past with him, and so I wanted to ask that question. I wanted to see where you are at right now. So this has been helpful.
Yeah. I wish he was more active than he is, but I know why he keeps on retreating, because he only comes. He does go home. He does go home, and that's what people don't like. It like people end up criticizing him for going home, and he's like, I don't need this. Like whenever someone criticizes him and he's like, why are you speaking? He's like, okay, thank you for the grant for me to go home.
All right. Well, I've got a big day. We've got our special estuary meeting tonight. We've got estuary cleanup day tomorrow. Well, hold on. Don't you have like an estuary weekend coming up or something? Weekend. It's this weekend? Yeah.
Jameis is coming up?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was next weekend. Isn't Dr. Shara? I thought Dr. Shara said he was going to come up. I don't know.
No, not that. Paul Allen is coming, so he just emailed me. He'll be here. So there'll be more weekends. We have more to do before, to get. The goal of this thing is to get as many of our little classrooms estuary ready, so that when we do an estuary event at Livingstone's, we can have breakout rooms. So we'll have, you've been in the space, you know how big it is. It's not a huge space. It won't be a big conference, but you can maybe have 100 people in the sanctuary for the plenary session and then break them all out into the little estuary groups. So,
well, I'm glad you're no longer burying your talents.
Unlike Eric, I'm not real hobbity. I'm pretty out there.
You're more hobbity than you think.
Well, that's true. I do like my comforts, and I do like my withdrawals and my retreats.
Yes, I've noticed.
Jacob, do you still think Bob Dole is too old to be?
So he actually he found one of my articles where I argued that Bob Dole should, and yeah, it was the 1996 election, right? And I thought that Bob Dole should pick Elizabeth as his vice presidential nominee, and maybe even bow out. Do you remember Elizabeth Dole? No. I was a huge fan of Elizabeth Dole.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I dare say, I think many of my articles back in my Daily Trojan days were actually good articles. But yeah, who knows?
You're Jacob, you are, I count it, I mean this sincerely, I count it one of my real joys that I've had an opportunity to meet you and to know you and to be a friend, because you are a very unique person. And and a lot of people, I think, they see your kind of raging persona on the internet, but that's just one aspect of you, and you're really a rather amazing person, and so I appreciate that. So,
aww, Now you're making me feel bad for like constantly making your life hard.
No, you don't make my life hard. I've part of me is a troll, and I actually enjoy trolls, which is why, I like Claire and I like Nathan, and it makes me sad when they do things that torpedo their own lives.
Yeah. I mean, Nathan, he should not be on. There's a reason why, and I keep on remembering, like, this was years ago. Nathan came on to your stream while I was on your stream, and I immediately left.
You got off right away. I remember that.
And there's a reason why I did that. There are certain people who I think, like, giving them the spotlight on the internet is seriously damaging. And so those are the people I block, and I will not in any way give air to them because it hurts
that category for you.
Claire has I'm not giving her air. She has a larger audience than I do.
Okay.
And to some extent, I mean, I don't give her that much air, but Claire definitely has a larger audience than I do. And she, yeah, this is what a lot of people do. Oh, she's broadcasting this stream to her channel right now. Claire has her devotees and her fans. Yes. She doesn't, like, most people hate watch her. Nobody agrees with her. I hate to say it. She's kind of a lol cow, but lots and lots of people know who she is, and she's in constant contact with a lot of people. She has her newsletter, and she has her Substack, and she has her, well, it's not on Substack, it's on something else. And yeah, she's constantly, this is why I have to say, like, that I still put the 20% likelihood that she's actually a sort of character she herself plays on the internet. The reason I looked into her, look, she's a qualified barrister in England. Yes, she's a qualified barrister in England. And in the United States, you would have gotten disbarred for the types of stuff she does. She hasn't even been prosecuted, which in England, I mean, that's the types of things she says. So the possibility that she has actual connections with governments and stuff is not zero. It's not zero. It may be low, but it's not zero. And people very much underestimate Claire. She is very, very smart, very, very capable, and she's not as dumb as she pretends to be.
Wow. Well, I met her in the UK, and it was lovely. She came to one of our meetups, and so, yeah. Oh, boy, what a world. What a world.
The world is a complex place.
So maybe I have to do like Eric and just retreat and just, there are days when I think, what am I doing? I just shut all this stuff down.
Or, you could accept your role as the Archbishop of Grand Rapids.
Yeah, they don't want me, Jacob. They don't want me. I'm there. I'm not going to tell the story.
Paul went to Jerusalem. Paul went to Jerusalem. Servetus went to Geneva. Paul Vanderklay has to go to Grand Rapids. It's just pick up your cross and follow Jesus. That's how it works.
No, Grand Rapids has had enough opportunities to have me, and for the most part, what I do is not in the plan for most of them.
Okay.
It's too free. It's too crazy. It's too open. You know, it's not corporate enough.
Okay. I mean, look, you know the CRC much better than I do.
I do.
You do. You do.
All right. I have things to do to get ready for a big day. So
Have fun.
you all.
Yeah.
Good to see
So
you.
you're not
guys.
streaming?
What?
You're not streaming today?
No. I've got to get all my work done in the morning, and then we've got Estuary tonight, and Paul Allen is.
Oh,
in town.
I am so tempted to keep streaming through the Pauling hour.
Why not? It's open. It's free. So stream all you want.
I might just do that. Okay, Paul. God bless.
All right.
Don't do
Yep.
anything I would do.
Yeah, Paul, it's good to see you.
Rabbeinu Yosef.
Man.
So how many synagogues have been attacked over the past 2 days? 3, 4?
If we say 3 days, then 5, I think.
5.
There's the two. No, sorry. There's the 2 in Toronto this week. There was a different one last week. So let's count those 2. The one in is it Liege? The one in Grand Rapids.
It wasn't Grand Rapids. It was closer to Detroit.
Sorry, not Grand Rapids. Sorry, Michigan. Yeah, sorry. Wherever it was. Yeah, you're just talking about. Sorry, that's confusing. Other part of Michigan.
I don't know who Rigel is, Luke. Who's Rigel?
Rigel's a member of the TLC who streams. I've never really seen much of his channel, but I know Luke. That's it. More on that side of the world, on that side of our little corner.
Okay. I mean, I'm sorry if I don't know who this guy is. I mean, being a personalist as I am, I can't possibly defer to an institution where people actually care about people in their community they don't personally know. So, that's how it works. Rigel plays music and gets girls to join his stream. Jason, unless Rigel is married, I would say you kind of won it over. How loud is the squeaky toy?
Very loud.
Yeah, okay. So that means that you can give RJ what he wants, which is a little drasha on the parsha.
I just posted one in your Discord, so excellent. From someone else, not my own. So this week's parsha, it's a Torah portion, is a double portion. The last 2 portions in the book of Exodus, and I think a lot of people are tempted to kind of skip over these portions because it's just a repetition of portions that we had right before the golden calf. So they're building the tabernacle. So they're just doing the things that God says. In fact, it's really important that 7 times in this portion it says that Moses did as God commanded. So it really keeps hammering, he's doing exactly what God wants. He's doing exactly what God wants. And I mean, this is a known pattern from the ancient Near East, where a God asks someone to do something, and then the person says what the God says, and then they repeat what they say. I did exactly what the God said. I repeat it. So
speak louder, my friend Yosef. Speak louder.
I thought it was a squeaky toy that was too loud. It's me? Oh, okay. I need to be louder. Gosh. Okay, I don't have. Okay. So yeah. So it seems like they're just repeating, but it's really important because this repetition isn't just a repetition. One, the last time we had and he did exactly as God commanded, a bunch of times, was with Noah and the ark. So there's a really interesting way to read or see the structure of Genesis and Exodus as one big unit, where the beginning, I think Rabbi Sachs says this, but I'm pretty sure he gets it from somewhere else, where you have God making a home for creation, and then at the beginning of the unit, and then it ends with us making a home for God at the end of the unit, the end of Exodus. So we have this kind of, and then in between, like you can see the man and the failures of the generations at the beginning of Genesis parallels the kind of the complaints of the people and the golden calf and the things that happen within Exodus. We have the flood story, the destruction story, parallel to the plagues and the Sea of Reeds. So you can actually kind of see there's a whole bunch of parallels. There's a chiastic structure, I'm sure. There's lots of people who like those things. But generally, like there is this really interesting structure. And here we have the building of the tabernacle as parallel to Noah building the ark. But they're also sort of inverted, right? So Noah's building an ark just for himself, and he's going to, and his family and these animals, and he's not trying to like project outward into the world, but just like save himself and his family in this like small unit for survival. The tabernacle is a form of the way that the Jews survive in the desert, as we talked about yesterday on Psalm 91 in that stream. And at the end, Jacob, we connected it to Psalm 90 and how these are Psalms that Moses says at the dedication of the tabernacle, according to the Midrash, right? Or the Talmud, in fact, says that, right? So when we were talking about like that he's going to protect your tent and there'll be no plague because of evil in your tent, like all those things, like the tent being the tabernacle is like one way to read all this. And it supports, you're disturbed by Achbadehu, I will make him honored or whatever, bring him glory. But that's Ananei HaKavod in that reading, right? So the clouds of glory are the becoming glorious, right? But the clouds of glory are attached to the tabernacle. They move with the tabernacle, they settle on it, right? They're very, very coupled in an important way. So in some ways, the priests are contra-parallel to Noah, where they are doing the thing. They're going to be in isolation for 7 days. Like that, we have that seven-day language of don't leave this place for 7 days, right? Noah gets a very similar kind of command. And the animals are coming to to both of them, and they have to separate pure animals and impure animals. But one is very inward focused and saving myself and my family just by like closing everything off, maybe leaving a tiny little window. Whereas the tabernacle is this big open tent for the most part, though it has a closed part in the middle, but it is this big open tent. And the sacrifices and everything are kind of this contra-parallel where the priests are being with the animals and they're doing all the things that Noah does and they're taking care of them. In fact, like for the daily offering, right, they have to keep for like 4 days beforehand, they have to like be checking the sheep and making the lambs and making sure they're okay and like all these things. They're really taking care of these animals and checking them constantly. But like it's for the sake of the entire nation or maybe the world, depending on how you understand the tabernacle, right? And its cosmology. But it's an inside out version of the ark in a really interesting way. It's awesome. There's a bunch of other stuff, but I like that part. So there's my little one. There's a bunch of other kind of little interesting things in here, but for the most part, yeah, he's just obeying the exact commands. And if you did the Torah portion 2 weeks ago, then you've already you know what he should be doing. The other kind of really nice thing, I guess, is like in between the command to build the tabernacle and the building, they had the golden calf. Now, chronologically, that may or may not be the case. Like there's a whole debate but like the way that the text shows us, the golden calf is in the middle. And then even after the golden calf, like one of the ways that God shows them that like, hey, I am still your God and I still want you and I still want to dwell among you, which is a big question at the end of last week's portion. And Moses saying like, how do we know that you're going to come with us now that we did this? God says, like he reassures them by kind of saying like, I still want you to keep Shabbat. I still want you to build the tabernacle. Like, don't not do these things. Like the relationship is still there. The covenant is still there. And even with the sin of the golden calf, which seems to be such a huge sin, is actually like it is something that can be healed from and forgiven, and repentance is possible. And like we have this deep lesson. And so yeah, when you're reading this and you're thinking, oh, this is super repetitive, like every time they do something that God says is in fact like part of a step of their atonement and repentance. and God's acceptance of it, and God's wanting that of them. So I think it's a beautiful portion, even if it feels a little repetitive and it's quite long. It's also tied to the liturgical calendar. So we always have to read these portions right before, a couple weeks before Passover, before Pesach, because the dedication of the tabernacle, like the thing where this portion ends, is on the 1st of Nisan, of the first month of the first day of the first month of spring, when they build the tabernacle. And that is what's coming up this week. Like, so the way that the rabbis have designed the yearly Torah readings is for this to always fall out, so that it's around the week that it actually is happening, which is cool, because like you don't always get that. There are times when it just like randomly mentions this, the second month, the 20th day of the second month, and you'll be, in the 11th month or something. So, but here they actually intentionally try to align the Torah portion with the calendar in a nice way. How was that?
Perfect.
Like
Right when Lucky stopped playing with that very loud squeaky toy is when you ended. So good job. Donnie pointed out that there were no midrashim on the first two aliyahs of Vayakel. Is that true?
That's possible. There's also not a lot of commentaries, because any comments that exegetes do when there's a full repetition of a verse is they're going to do it on the first one, right? So if they're building the ark and it's like 2.5 amas by whatever, like the note there is always going to be on the first time that appears, which will be Tetzaveh and not in Vayakel. So I could believe that. Though there's like thousands of midrashim, so when he says there's none, I would have to double check.
Yeah,
to obey is better than sacrifice. Well, Shari, God still wants the sacrifice. So like the problem is, like, you shouldn't do the sacrifice unless you're doing it out of obedience, but you have to obey and then sacrifice. It's not one is better than the other. It's that you have to do one through the other. Sacrifice doesn't work as a system if it's not coming out of the right intention, basically, and mindfulness. Like it's very tied to what you pay attention to, because right, there's so many details, and like it really is a demanding thing. But if you're gonna just go through the rules as rules and not with the right intentions, then yeah, you're missing the point.
And Vayakel, like the Rebbe gave a sicha on Vayakel, and for some reason, that's so Chabadniks often make Farbrengens for Vayakel. So Yosef, RJ, anyone else who is around, people who, wow, we got Trey.
Yodi gang.
Okay.
Which reminds me, there was an excellent discussion on the Goodfellows with Condi Rice. I highly recommend it to everyone and anyone. But she also talked about AI more than I expected her to. I listen to the Goodfellas anyway because I love Neil Ferguson and H.R. McMaster. But yeah, she decided to be on it.
Do you remember anything about the Rebbe Sicha on Vayakel? I don't know it.
It's about, I mean, Vayakel, obviously, the verb kehila, right? To make a kehila. Moshe makes a kehila. Vayakel Moshe, right? So it's this whole idea that Moshe is kolel kol Israel, right?
Well,
and
it is interesting because in one of the Mefarshim, it has, like, this is how the golden calf starts, right? Where the people are v'yikalu el Aharon. So this is like the tikkun, I guess, of that. Like they were congregating to Aaron to make the golden calf. Now they're congregating to build the tabernacle. And it's also interesting because for both of them, like the people are willing to give all their stuff. Like this is like they're willing to contribute equally and as much to both projects, and they're willing to come together for both projects. And in some ways, like this is where at least some of the Hasidic rabbis like say that this is, I don't know if the Rebbe says this, but I know like the Maggid HaMezrich I think says this, where the part of the reason the golden calf is forgivable is it actually had a lot of good in it. They were trying to connect to God. They were willing to contribute. They were willing to come together as a community. Like it had all these sparks of goodness, but then it was like misdirected. And those had to be redirected into the tabernacle, fair enough. And that's why these portions are intertwined. But like, this is also going to be used for Aaron's sons, and like kind of their sin is also like seen and redeemed in this way to some degree. Unlike the spies, the sin of the spies is different, right? And they're going to like compare those.
Well, we don't have a lot from the Maggid, so what there is from the Maggid, I'm pretty sure the Rebbe must quote more than
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trey, what's up? I'm guessing today's your day off.
It is my day off. So, like, what's up with this place called Iran? I've never heard about it in my life because I'm an American. So,
yeah, wow, somebody who actually wants to talk about Iran. So the reason I have started going by Jacob I Love America Federacci is because I'm not the type of person to have non-American flags up, right? And I just want to make clear that, like, I support the imperial flag of Iran because it means the United States empire will grow, right? I am America first, Israel second, Iran third. But there's a lot going on in Iran, and frankly, like, I could spend a lot of time just monologuing about Iran, but I don't think anybody cares. And I hate monologuing. So, like, if somebody wants to discuss stuff, what?
Can I ask a question? Like right now, how much do we know about really what's going on in the ground in Iran? Like, how good are the reports? I mean, I know somehow citizens on the streets are targeting information to the Israelis, but like, as far as like reports out to the world about like what's going on, at different levels, like how good is that information? Are we getting a decent?
It's very biased. So the only people who are getting information out are people who are trying to get information out, right? So there's Sedao Sima, which is the official, they're the ones who, for example, put out a statement from Mujtaba, and they like, it's not even clear that he's not in a coma. We don't know what his current situation is.
Did he appear live once since the initial attack,
No.
or has he not appeared at all?
He has not appeared live at all since the attack. He was injured in the attack. That's been confirmed. His leg was injured, but that has kind of snowballed in internet speak into he's in a coma and they've amputated his leg, which I haven't seen any actual confirmation of that. But his leg was injured in the attack, can suddenly in internet speak. Yes, the cardboard cutout, which, I mean, the cardboard cutout video is AI generated, but it was an AI generated version of an actual event where they celebrated with a picture of him as opposed to him. So it's not exactly, yeah. Did it say that he spent yesterday walking? I find that hard to believe. What was the question? The question is, how much do we know things on the ground?
Yeah, how good is the information, and how much are we actually getting?
We are getting videos because the internet. So apparently, people in Iran are using. So I guess Jack Dorsey has come up with an app that allows phones to directly communicate with each other and kind of to hop off each other to I forget what the name of it is, but
So they're not using the cell towers directly.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, and then there are some people who have Starlink, but yeah, I mean, there are videos coming out of Iran, and they are real videos coming out of Iran.
Is the general internet blackout that happened ages ago, is that still in effect technically?
Yes.
Okay.
And
this-
it's gotten worse. So Iran's internet traffic right now is about 1% of normal.
Wow. And Starlink, I know the Iranians were trying to block it. It sounds like they've only been partially successful.
I don't know. Part of the problem is they've also been sending execution squads out trying to find people using Starlink. So, but now, I mean, over the past 2 days, the big news has been the swarms of drones, and Israel, actually, the Israeli Defense Force Twitter has put out some videos, and the United States, the White House has put out some videos showing attacks on the IRGC and besieged compounds. And I mean, that was deliberate. They're putting out like, hey, you know those people who shot all the people who were demonstrating? Well, they're the ones who are getting hunted down now. And at least in my circles, those videos are very, very are very, very popular. Yeah, there is some communication with Iran, some telephone communication, some internet connectivity, but yeah, it's hard to know what's going on. What I can say is I do believe the estimates most people give, which is 80% of the population would prefer there not be a Islamic regime anymore. And when Pahlavi, so Pahlavi has basically been saying, he's been saying, don't stay home, don't go to work, don't pack supplies, stay away from targets, etc. When he starts saying, yeah, come out into the streets, that's when the rubber will hit the road. And that's when we will find out how many people show up. Now, I have to say, we have some indication because the last time he told people to come out into the streets, there was enough of them that all over the country, they ended up using shotguns and machine guns on the crowds. Now they're no longer going to be able to use certainly their machine guns, and I doubt very much even their shotguns, because there are drones flying overhead, and that's why I think most of the thing is like most of the operations are around Tehran, because ultimately, while people were protesting all over the country, and that was important, in order for the regime to fall, Tehran is going to be the main thing that needs to fall. And there are indications of elite fracture. So at least a couple of countries have mentioned diplomatic staff in Iranian embassies asking to defect. the women's soccer team defecting was huge.
Mhm.
Yeah, Tusi. I mean, he's an entertaining guy who I don't think is like creating deliberate propaganda, but he also he's more willing to play fast and loose with the with facts than I personally feel even on my channel. And if I had a channel as big as his, I would feel a lot more responsibility to make sure that what I say is factual. He's been willing to repeat internet stuff more often than I would.
Hiya.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Hi.
You look well.
Okay, how are you?
Jacob, I hear on the grapevine about different factions in Iran, like the IRGC is separate to some military.
The Basij.
To the Mullahs. And
So
can
there's
you see it in your eyes? I'm not asking you for the absolute truth. It's just how you see it. It really interests me.
Okay. I mean, I would like to think that we are talking absolute truth, but so there are three major military forces on the ground in Iran. There's the Artesh, which is the military as it existed before the Shah. Okay. It is a conscript military. It is a professional military. So Iranians, young Iranian men have to serve in the Artesh. And that is the institution that there's any hope whatsoever, in my estimation, that it might actually turn on the Islamic regime. So, but for the past 47 years, the Islamic regime, because they realized that the Artesh turning on the Shah, or at least that's their story. Their story is that the Artesh turned on the Shah, and that's how the revolution happened. And to prevent that is why they created the IRGC, which is the Revolutionary Guard. Now, the Revolutionary Guard is a separate military which is rife with nepotism and corruption, but also the real power and the real, what is controlling Iran. And so the IRGC runs at least 40% of the Iranian economy. They're the ones who are selling. Lucky, could you play with a different squeaky toy? Thank you. The IRGC, they're the ones who sell the oil and basically take the oil money, and that's the real leadership, and they're the ones. So what happened was, Lucky, what happened was that during so Pezeshkian, he was the nominal president of Iran. He was one of the three members of the ruling council between when Khamenei died and when his son Mojtaba was named the next Ayatollah, right? So there was a ruling council of three members. Pezeshkian was basically the only one whose name anybody knew, and the only one who, and he was all three of them are supposedly supposed to have, equal say and power to rule. And he made a few comments, specifically apologizing for the attacks on their neighbors, and almost immediately there were public repudiations of what he said. Like, this is what we call elite fracture. Elite fracture is like the most important single thing right now in terms of seeing if the regime is going to fall. But Pezeshkian made a formal public declaration saying, we're sorry for the attacks on our neighbors. We won't do it again. And like, there was an immediate backlash from leaders in the IRGC. And right after that, Mojtaba was named the Ayatollah. So again, we're seeing elite fracture between Pezeshkian and the IRGC. Anyway, so the IRGC won that fight despite what the Constitution says and what's supposed to be, right? And look, it is possible that Mojtaba Khamenei is in a coma, but even if he's not in a coma, let's face it, he's been thrown into this 11 days, 2 weeks after his mother, his father, his sister, his wife, his son were all killed in an attack where he got hurt. He's not the most psychologically sound person in the world right now.
I thought it was his daughter.
I believe it was his son, but it may have been his daughter.
It doesn't matter, I suppose. I mean, it does matter, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, and 40 of the top leaders of have been killed, and even the ones who are alive, like communication, they are communicating on Twitter with each other because they have to, right? Like the situation in Iran. It's funny. Claire sent me a video where Mearsheimer was on Chris Hedges' podcast. And it was so funny, I almost played it. Because what Hedges describes as what's going on in Iran was just so hilariously stupid. Like the propagandists, and this is the thing with the news in the United States, like, I don't blame an American for like not understanding. Like, maybe I should pull up Chris Hedges' little thing and show.
Why not? Pull it up.
So
Yeah. Okay.
Before you do though, Jacob.
Yeah.
This is not just an American thing, right? I know I think it was Don asking about the Chinese professor, which is, I assume she means Professor Jiang, and his sort of insane takes on what's going on. Talk about like someone. Like,
I haven't heard. I mean, I don't listen to Jiang because it seems very
not
obvious. What?
I try not to. I try not to listen to him, but then people send me things asking me, "Hey, is this right? Or does this make sense?" I think
it's very obvious that he is Chinese propaganda. Why you would subject yourself to Chinese propaganda? Like you realize you're like deliberately propagandizing yourself to Chinese.
Yes.
Or buttered toast.
I just want to add though.
Yeah.
Hold on. It is. I think you're right. I'm pretty sure you're right. I know some people have their own opinions about like maybe he's whatever, but I do think that the Chinese are intentionally pushing his stuff, and he's probably intentionally propagandizing for them. He has some really weird takes. He does a lot of conspiracy theory stuff. I know people like him because he's an independent thinker, though it's weird because he's part of the Chinese, like academy. He's a professor in a mainstream
He's a very
school.
smart guy.
Well, that's the thing. So he's a smart guy, but like, so I was listening. Someone sent me his, I think it was on Grimm's server, his Shabbatai Tzvi episode, and it was from like historical like perspective, like just like someone who does, I minor in history and like I've done archaeology, and like it was just a mess as far as like he was basically using everything from one book that is not a book from someone who actually has any credentials or has actually done much decent research. I tried to watch this and I was just like, and I even commented, it's only his young video I've commented on. There was like literally a mistake every minute in that video that he was like, there's a false
Okay,
fact or
yes,
something
sir.
he made up. It was awful. It was like so bad, but he was pushing. But the reason I was actually watching it, Jacob, was I was curious what he was pushing. Like, why did he care about Shabbatai Tzvi? Like, what was, let's say it's propaganda, but like, why? Like, why? This seems like a weird thing for him to care about. So he didn't actually care about Tzvi. He said a bunch of like fake stuff about Tzvi for the first 5 minutes, and really quickly moved on to Jacob Frank. But then he was conflating the two of them because he doesn't understand. Like the book he was reading from, like didn't really understand the difference between their philosophies or theologies or anything. And then he connected it all, of course, to like the Freemasons and to the Illuminati and like all of those kind of standard conspiracy theories. But he was presenting it as, I'm a professor at a Chinese school that's respected and authoritative. And then he was just like, well, everyone should just read this book. This book is like the best book ever. And it's like, this book is just a conspiracy theory book that's self-published by a random dude who doesn't understand what's going on. And here you are pushing it.
Okay, so 3 things to understand, maybe 4. The one, what Edward Bernays very clearly demonstrated was propaganda is not when you get someone who doesn't believe anything, you give them money and you tell them to say talking points to try to convince people of things they themselves don't believe. Good propaganda is when you find someone who believes the things you want them to push and you elevate their voices, right? So whether or not this Jiang guy actually believes, doesn't believe, that's completely beside the point. Second point. The state of non-English academics is in a situation that, frankly, I especially not in the West. Okay, like you have German academia, you have Israeli academics, right? When you compare with like a Persian, like there is a very, it seems to me, very intelligent and very well-meaning PhD from Tehran University, his PhD was on Zionism and Israel, right? He doesn't know English and he doesn't know Hebrew. And I almost like, I'm like grasping at straws, hoping he knows Turkish or German, which might give him some access to some literature. But like, I've listened to him and like I could fit the amount he knows about Israel in a thimble, right? And it's
you
not
could do that with me as well.
Yeah, but you don't have a PhD. You don't have a PhD where you wrote your dissertation on the establishment of the state of Israel.
Yeah, and I really talk about it because I have no idea.
But he does talk about it because he has a PhD and he is the professor in Iran whose specialty is Israel and he understands a lot more than the vast majority of them, right? And so that's important. Another thing, Dugin has started talking about Zionism right now because Zionism has become the bogey for both Russia and China.
And I'm curious because I don't know if you ever saw Millerman, who's the Dugin English translator, has a very positive stance on Zionism. I believe he's Jewish, I'm not actually sure, but he has a very positive stance on Zionism from years ago, where he published a paper that basically said Zionism is the fulfillment of Dugin's dream for the Jews. And it is very interesting to kind of see Dugin go the opposite. I sort of expected Dugin to go the opposite direction. I was surprised that Millerman had this paper.
I think Millerman was raised Jewish, but he's a Christian now. An Orthodox Christian, maybe.
But I'm still curious. Has he retracted this paper? Has he? Like, I don't know. Or like, has Dugin commented on it? Or like, or they have a big disagreement over this issue? That's where my question sort of lies.
Millerman is very eloquent. I don't find his analysis to be very incisive, which I would expect from somebody who likes Dugin.
Do you want to hear an old Caucasian joke?
Anyway, sure, go ahead.
from the region of the Caucasus. No,
Yes, I get it.
the American idea. Don't be offended. You boil 7 Russians, you get 1 Jew. You boil 7 Jews, you get 1 Armenian. But only by boiling 7 Armenians do you get an eyesore.
Do you get an eyesore?
Yeah, it's I've not met any Isoreans. I've not met
Oh,
any.
I have no idea what an eyesore is.
Maybe the name has changed recently, but apparently they're very good at doing business.
And boiling, I'm guessing, means deriving the essence of. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And I have to say, in the Middle East, one of the few positive stereotypes that exists out there is, that's what I thought. I thought he was talking about an eyesore, right?
Yeah,
I'm like, an
some
ugly
sort of-
person? Like, what is he saying? One of the few, I see. Okay. One of the few, positive stereotypes that I've ever encountered is in the Middle East, the Armenians are known for being incredibly good and competent at doing things. That is what they're known for. Okay, I want to play this Chris Hedges thing because I want more jokes about boiling different races, please. Because like everything he says in his little explanation of what's going on in the war is the opposite of the truth. Like you can take every sentence he says and flip it and it will be true, which is the shocking part. I only listened to his little introduction. I'm like, why am I bothering? But here you go.
Information in war is weaponized. This is true for the United States.
So he is giving you a preamble. Information in war is weaponized in order to explain why he's lying. And the people who follow him for a long, like actually follow him, recognize that he's lying. I want you to understand that. That's why he started with information in war is weaponized. He's saying everyone's lying, so I'm going to lie to you. And I'm going to give you lies to repeat. That's what he's saying in a Straussian wink, wink, nod, nod sort of way.
It is true for Israel, and it is true for Iran. But reading through the fog of war, the conflict with Iran does not appear to be going well for Israel or its
really
U.S. ally. Iran's closing of the Strait of Hormuz and threats to mine the waterway is triggering the largest energy supply shock in decades.
Okay. I believe this came out after the UN Security Council resolution. The UN Security Council resolution and the fact that the International Energy Agency, I think it's called, decided to release this 400 billion barrels or something like that, or maybe 400 million barrels. I don't know. I may be orders of magnitude off, but a lot of oil from the strategic oil reserves of the member nations. So you have to understand that what Chris Hedges would be screaming from the rooftops if the United States were to do what Iran claims it's not doing while it's doing, which is closing off the Strait of Hormuz, is a war crime, and it's against international law. That's why the Security Council was like, no, this is not going to happen. We're not going to allow it. And the rest of the world will, in fact, this is not allowed. Yet, Chris Hedges is like, oh, well, Iran closed, which Iran claims it hasn't, closed the Strait of Hormuz, right? That is a war crime because it's not closing it to American and Israeli ships. It's closing it to other countries' ships, and it's international waterways. And if you want the rest of the world to come up, come to the aid of the people you are in a war with, what you do is attack other countries that are not involved in the war. Because guess what? Then that means that they have to come into the war on the side of the people who you were going against. This is the dumbest strategic move since the invasion of Russia. Like, after the invasion of Russia, the dumbest thing Iran could possibly do is close the Strait of Hormuz. Guess what it's doing? Because guess who it hurts the most? China. Guess who the biggest ally, the most important ally they have is? China. And the funny thing is that when you listen to Persian language propaganda, they talk about how, what's actually going on in Farsi, like the way the Persian Iranian propaganda is not, we close the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian propaganda is China is the one that's only allowing Persian oil out of Iran. That's their propaganda. Anyway, so back to Chris.
Can I interrupt?
Sure.
I don't fully understand it, but there's insurance of ships, and Lloyd's of London, who insure most of the ships, said, "Oh, okay, we're not going to insure the ships anymore."
Correct.
Trump said, "Okay, we'll insure them, no problem." So there's this City of London aspect to this, which I'm not 100% about, but it's definitely there on the fringes.
100%. You're absolutely correct. The main thing that's keeping ships going through the Strait of Hormuz is insurance companies have said, if you go through it, we will not insure you. And that's basically for a large, unless you're an independent self-insurer. Apparently there's a billionaire who's like, okay, I'm sending my ships myself, right? And he's basically self-insuring, and there apparently is a trickle of oil going through as people are willing to risk it. And it becomes more and more clear that Iran has less and less capability to actually do anything. And as the price of oil goes up, it'll be more and more people will be willing to risk more and more and pay higher insurance premiums. But honestly, like Condoleezza Rice said in that interview I keep on talking about, like, the price of oil has been at $150 a barrel before. Like, it's around 100 right now, and a lot of this is of uneasiness.
It's dropped down to about 80.
So it's been fluctuating a lot, especially with the release of the strategic oil reserves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, right now, the most important question is what's going to happen in the Strait of Hormuz, because Iran is grasping by the straw. That is the straw they have for but at the same time, if you're being realistic about it, which a lot of people aren't, right? This is the thing. This is why am I playing Chris Hedges? There's no way that Chris Hedges is putting his money on any of the bullshit he says, because he knows it's bullshit. John Mearsheimer, who has never been right about anything,
they might not know it's bullshit.
What?
I'm sorry. Some people really are just malinformed.
Oh, there are definitely people who are malinformed. Our dear friend Jan God, malinformed. What's her name? Claire? Malinformed. There are definitely lots and lots of people who are malinformed. Chris Hedges knows better than to say the bullshit that he's saying. That's why he said the preamble. John Mearsheimer may be unhinged enough to believe the things that he said. I have zero clue how that man has maintained a career while not having been right about anything in his entire career. I defy you to point out a single thing that man has said which has turned out to be correct. Okay.
This energy crisis will only get worse. Iran
Energy prices will only get worse? Really? Are you sure about that? Because if please put your money where your mouth is. Put your money where your mouth is. I want to see you go bankrupt, but you won't.
Iran is degraded.
What?
But Jacob,
yeah,
he's got lots of books behind him. He must be intelligent.
Right, exactly.
Military infrastructure, taking out sophisticated U.S. radar stations in the
listen to this again. Listen to this again.
To mine the waterway is triggering the largest energy supply shock in decades. This energy crisis will only get worse. Iran has degraded the region's military infrastructure, taking out sophisticated U.S. radar stations in the Gulf and in Israel.
Okay, so is that true? Like,
Can I interrupt you?
Iran
Sorry.
has actually been taking out U.S. Radar?
I'm an electronics engineer. I've worked on radar for a military defense contractor. I did my apprenticeship with one.
Okay.
I know a bit about radar, okay? They're not that complicated. They're not that big. You can move them pretty easily. Kind of difficult to take them out because they're just easy.
We have 2 aircraft carrier strike groups in the region. Like, who actually believes that Iran has been capable of taking out Israeli and Iranian radar? Like, this is absolute bullshit. Absolute, pure, unadulterated retardium.
Jacob, the Iranians will love this. And they can rebroadcast him and make him viral, just like the Chinese do with Jiang. He's giving them lots of good material, even if it's completely made up.
I mean, but
can we?
Yeah.
I have a question. So we could keep going through this Chris Hedges thing, and you can just keep calling him out, whatever.
Yeah.
I think
It's amazing me. I've been grumpy for the last 3 days, so keep making me
I think
laugh,
we could.
Jacob. Sorry, Joseph.
I think it might be worth, because as Don is pointing out, discussing a little bit this now viral clip of the Rebbe and Bibi from the 92 or whenever, where a lot of conspiracy theorists and we talk about people who think
you're tempting me. Yosef, you're tempting me to bring up a video of the Rebbe. I only show close friends, because I think if Tucker Carlson were to see that video of the Rebbe, he would lose his mind and it would be all over the internet.
There already is a video like this.
What?
Right. There's a video like this that has already caused people to lose their mind. That I think it's your channel, especially right now. It might be the better use of time worth it just talking about that video for like a couple of minutes. I will. It's because Professor Jiang uses it in his presentation. That's why people care about it. Is that it went viral because somehow he found it from somebody, and then he's been putting it on his big screen in front of his in theory class. I don't know if we ever see his students, but I assume he's actually in front of a class for those.
Let me see if I can find this video. Here it is.
I think because of your. You can explain Chabad and the Rebbe better than I can. I'm happy to do a commentary video on it. I have time. I'm sick. I'm on medical leave, but you're here and you're better.
I don't even know if they use radar stations anymore.
They do. They still radar stations, and I see what IKEA is saying here. I hadn't heard about this. It's possible they took out 2 THAADs. THAADs. I don't know how to pronounce them.
Yeah, it's possible that we lost yesterday the Iranian propaganda was losing its mind over the fact that there was a crash between two of our airplanes, and we lost some people, which, you know, God have mercy on our souls. We did lose some airmen.
The entire they said this morning that originally it was not the whole crew, but now the entire crew of 6 have died, actually.
Baruch Dayan Emet. But like, okay, like if you expect these many of sorties without any, like, without losing any people, airplanes, you've lost your mind.
And most of it
lost your mind.
And a lot of it is on the friendly side, like it's either our own or allies.
Yeah.
So there have been successful attacks. There was the attack on Erbil on the French base, where I think they said 6 or 7 were killed. But like there have been a few, and of course there's been a couple. We have a number of casualties in Israel.
Like Iran has done, like
war.
It is a war with a country which is not like defenseless. Iran is a major regional power that was fighting a war against Iraq for 10 years in the 80s. Iran supplies
it supplies the weapons to Russia, like for the Ukraine war. Like it has a very strong industrial base for its military complex.
So the expectations, like the people are pretending like this is the Italians attacking the Ethiopians. It's not.
No.
Right?
Even the Ethiopians got some casualties in. I mean, like even
they did.
Or we can talk about the Zulu Wars. Like they did a lot better than the empire.
Right. It's people who know nothing about history who imagine that you can have a war and like wars just go cleanly the way they would when you get a perfect score playing some video game. It's the video game generation who sees things these ways.
And on that note, then this goes to Professor Jiang and tying it in. He may very well. I mean, he is smart. He may. I don't doubt that he has like his dissertation in Chinese history is probably. I think it's in Chinese history. It's probably really good. He probably has a command of Chinese history. I would believe that. He's then using that authority to say he can teach other forms of history, which is fine. I mean, in some degree, like that is what happens in all academia, where you say, well, I've been trained in the methods and I can do this thing. But what I've seen from his classes that go viral in English, the non-Chinese classes, I don't know Chinese. I'd be really curious for someone to look at his Chinese work classes and see if it's the same, is he's not using the historical methods of the academy. And this is a question of, is that like deliberate? Is it like he's like this radical free thinker? Or is it like he knows these methods, but like he is using other methods because they allow for results that he can use as propaganda? Like those are like the types of questions I have. But this happens a lot, right? With people are experts in certain things, and like the Iranians, their professor in Zionism probably is not going to be great, but like they have very very successful and well-educated nuclear scientists. Like you do not underestimate expertise in specific regions, and they don't necessarily translate to other things. But and I'm sure they also have really great expertise in Iranian history. Like I'm probably better than any of us could do. And Iranian archaeology, right? I try to read Iranian archaeology that's translated, and it's awful. But like I've been told that actually, like the stuff that gets translated is basically like the fringe thinkers and like not the main stuff. And the main stuff I hear is actually really awesome, and I have no access to it, and that's frustrating. But like I'm sure they have good archaeologists there. They have a massive amount of sites. And hopefully someday we'll have access, maybe through translation through the LLMs, we'll get to actually see those papers and understand them.
I think LLM translation is going to be a larger breakthrough than people realize, because
absolutely amazing.
Yeah. The fact is, like, unless you speak English, you have so little access to so much scholarship. You really,
I'd say even the other way, like I can now access German and French academic papers that I could never do before, and the translation quality is so much better. And even for ancient languages, the rabbinic Hebrew quality is good, the Mishnaic Hebrew, and you can tell it like just keep to this era of this language, and it is Not always perfect because there are not always enough samples, but it's so much better than anything on the internet and anything that exists.
It used to be a requirement of all PhDs that you be fluent in 2 other languages.
Well, outside of STEM, yeah. I mean, and my friends who are like, I have a friend who's doing a PhD in Talmud at NYU, and he needs 5 languages, right? Like, it's insane because for him to access the academic work, he needs French and German, and for him to access the actual ancient languages, he needs. Well, he already had Hebrew, and he had some Aramaic, but now he had to take formal Aramaic, and he had to take both kind of Palestinian Aramaic, or whatever you call it, the Aramaic of the Yerushalmi and the Aramaic of the Bavli, right, which are different. So great. Anyway, let's do this clip because this clip is the one that we can actually talk to. It's meaningful to us.
Okay. So I don't know who the guy in the middle is. He's probably just a bacher. The Rebbe is on the right, and Rabbi Leibel Groner is on the left. Rabbi Groner was the Rebbe's closest secretary, basically did everything for him. And the Rebbe, so once his following got too large, and he was already, like in 1990, he was already 88 or 86, right? This is right before his stroke. He had a stroke in 92 and he died in 94. And so when the Rebbe's following, so just to explain, when the Rebbe became the Grand Rabbi, the 7th Grand Rabbi of Chabad Lubavitch, which was a storied and important dynasty in the Hasidic movement, it hasn't always been one of the largest ones. Certainly after World War II, after the Bolshevik Revolution, its numbers decreased, and then after World War II, it had pretty much been decimated. I think the word decimated really does apply there.
More than decimated, much more than decimated.
Yeah.
The Chabad. So for people who don't know, Hasidism, as it spread, sort of was geographic. It wasn't perfectly territorial, but most of Chabad Hasidim were kind of located in Russian territory, unlike almost any of the other Hasidic groups. Their core base was in Russian territory. Other Hasidic groups are either in Hungary or in Poland, or I guess a little bit more Ukraine, or like Western Ukraine. Whereas Chabad was like super centralized in Russia proper, in Belarus, and in Eastern Ukraine. So like really Russian lands, and like the revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution affects them much more deeply than any other group. Though the other groups in some ways are worse off in World War II because they're actually in the invaded lands. Chabad partially survives. Well, I don't know. There's a long story why it survives. You don't have to do the whole background. But it's very geographic, and history matters.
Yeah. So in 1954, I believe the Rebbe became, or maybe it was 52. His father-in-law passed away, and in 51, I believe his father-in-law passed away. In 52, a year later, the Rebbe formally becomes the 7th Grand Rabbi of the Chabad Hasidic dynasty. And at the time, 770 Eastern Parkway, which didn't include half of the building that now people can call 770 Eastern Parkway, actually just 770, was the private residence of the Rebbe, and everything else. The previous Rebbe, the Rebbe never actually didn't live there eventually. Anyway, back to the thing. But the reason I'm saying all of this is when the Rebbe took over, Chabad was incredibly small, to the point where people would knock on the door and sometimes the Rebbe himself would answer. Okay? What happened was there was immense growth over the almost 50 years that the Rebbe was the Grand Rabbi. I would say upwards of 10% of Orthodox Jews who were alive in the 80s would say that if the Messiah were to come today, the Rebbe would be the Messiah. He was an incredible figure, right? Okay, so let me show you the guys the clip. And, so what happened was eventually, instead of having private meetings with people, he would stand and there would be a long line of people who would walk past him. He would give them $1 for them to give to charity, and he would briefly discuss with them. And this included important figures who wanted basically these videos. So prime ministers and stuff would come and get $1 from the Rebbe and speak to him briefly as he passed by. So that's what's going on here.
Sorry. So one or maybe two small points before. I know I want to start this video up. Like, we just have to get to it already. But like, whether or not they actually thought that he was a good candidate for the Messiah, the Rebbe's movement was heavily messianic. He was very focused on bringing the Messiah and immanentizing the Messiah. But his understanding of that is very different from, let's say, a Zionist or even a religious Zionist understanding, like Rav Kook, who's also from the Hasidic movement. The Rebbe's understanding was you immanentize the Messiah by doing commandments, and like each commandment, I think is a famous phrase. It's not from the Rebbe, but is that each commandment is like a stone in the third temple. And he was very much like any Jew anywhere, and non-Jew for the Noahide commandments, but like doing like one commandment, that itself was a way to bring about the Messiah. And even if it's just like one small thing, like or a rabbinic thing, like lighting candles on Shabbat or before Shabbat, giving charity, putting on tefillin. This is why he has all these campaigns to get Jews to do even like one mitzvah, one commandment. And
that's why he would give people $1 to give to charity.
That's why he gave the people $1. And he's so focused also on Noahide law and non-Jews, because he really felt that every single commandment, Jew and non-Jew, was a way to immanentize the Messiah, and like in a really real sense, like not just like, oh, this is a nice thing to do, whatever, but like this was real for him. And that's just like an important background for this specific video.
בכל העניינים. בזמן שישראל לאחרונה ניתצו כמה עניינים. מה שרואה עוד, וגם משהו שעדיין משאיר ליבו. אז הייתה משהו במה ידיעתו. הכנראה שהיא מספיק, שהיום כבר כמה שוד בגיל עדיין ליבו. אבל יש עוד כמה שעות, אבל יש להשתדל גם היום, בבשורות טובות. זה שמחה וטוב לראות. כדי שחסידים מקפידים שכל עניינים יהיו את שמחה. בשורות טובות, הצלחה רבה.
Okay. BB seems really creepy in that thing, but I don't understand why people would find this.
Okay. So people are super worked up about this because in the middle of that clip, it says like things have progressed since last time, and people are saying, "Oh, they had a plan and it's progressing." And like me and you watch this, and the way that we read what's happening in this is the Rebbe is telling him that like.
Oh no! Hold on. No, hold on. I think you're also misinterpreting.
Okay, go ahead. You tell me how you read what you just said.
The Rebbe was very much involved in Israeli politics, and the whole thing where he was moving forward, he was involved in the entire Yitzhak Shamir, Shimon Peres. That I think he was probably referring to that.
I agree, because this is in the 1990, right after that. So
right.
For people who don't know Israeli politics for a second, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but basically there, in the beginning of 1990, there had been a national unity government, and it basically. It collapsed because Shimon Peres tried to basically do a labor takeover. It was called the dirty trick or the stinking maneuver in Hebrew, if we translate it, where he tried to basically collapse his government. And what ended up happening was that didn't actually work, and then Yitzhak Shamir ends up forming a government in June. So basically, between March and June, like the unity government collapses, the labor left tries to take over, it fails, and instead Yitzhak Shamir, who's a right-wing Likud, takes over, and Netanyahu gets appointed sometime in the summer after that takeover as the deputy minister of I think it's Foreign Affairs under Moshe Aaron. So there was this like whole thing. Now, yes, Jacob, what's the Rebbe's involvement in that? He's very involved.
I mean, okay, yeah. So first of all, the Rebbe had a lot of influence in Israel and Israeli politics, and the entire Lubavitch movement was very, very opposed to, first of all, communism, and then secular Zionism, right? And so part of the Rebbe's apocalypticism was, I mean, the Rebbe ran a network, a secret network in Russia of anti-communist functionaries and stuff, right? And so the Rebbe felt defeating secular Zionism and the Labor Party, which had socialist roots, was a movement. Like, he would tell his supporters to always vote for the party Hachi Haredi. The more so he believed in incrementalism, and he wanted to push Israeli politics towards the right, and he did in many ways. I never got too much involved in the particulars and stuff, but there were a lot of people who were screaming about this rabbi who never came to Israel, who was inserting himself into Israeli politics. And yeah, the Rebbe did insert himself into Israeli politics a lot from New York.
Yeah. And so I'm going to give a couple more details that I'm aware of. One, so the Rebbe actually had met Netanyahu the first time. When he said it's been a long time since we've seen each other, that time was when, so Netanyahu in the 80s was the UN ambassador for Israel. And at the time, the Rebbe gave him a blessing, a very famous blessing, telling him that the UN was a house of lies and he had to stand for truth. And that was like,
and that you fight darkness with light, not with darkness.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes. Yeah, darkness with light. Yeah.
And didn't Netanyahu quote the Rebbe in his speech?
I believe so.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I looked into this, but I remember there was like a whole thing. So they knew each
other.
Chabadniks
make a huge deal about it. Yes.
It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me because, of course, like Bibi is quoting the Rebbe even when he's young, and before like everything happened. When Shimon Peres tries to topple the unity government in '90, he's trying to form a pro-peace coalition, and he reaches out to Agudat Yisrael, which is the Haredi party in Israel, one of the Haredi.
Oh, is this the whole thing with Shach splitting and?
So this isn't Shach splitting, but there were two members of Agudat Yisrael who were Chabad, and he had paskined, or he had ruled a halachic ruling that no land for peace, and the pro-peace party was for giving land for peace.
The Rebbe. Okay, you have to don't use the word paskind.
Okay. I thought that was an actual sack, but I could be wrong.
If we want to get into the halachic details of the Rebbe Shita and Eretz Yisrael,
this audience won't care about that.
Yes.
Basically, those two members of the party for Agudat Yisrael, the Haredi party, who are Chabad, said they were not going to support a pro-peace, narrow government. It collapsed his attempt at labor, because of course they didn't want to join with labor anyway. As you were pointing out, he was very he thought communism, the Labor Party in Israel was too communist. So then the Rebbe meets with a bunch of Israeli figures, including the editor of the Jerusalem Post, And he argues and he puts out articles and talks individually with them that Israel needs a narrow government, not a unity government, because he thought if unity governments were weak and weren't going to go in the right direction and compromise too much, and he really wanted a strong right-leaning government, and really pushes for what ends up happening, which is Shamir's takeover ultimately. And even though like the Rebbe, I don't know if he was tracking Netanyahu and all this, but his work by setting up Shamir ends up giving Netanyahu this job, and keeps his star basically rising in the ranks of Likud, because now he's moved from the UN ambassador, which in Israel is I guess in the US too, it's a lower rank than being in the cabinet, even as a deputy minister. So he starts moving up in part because of the Rebbe. And that is almost certainly what's being discussed here to some degree. Like it's that, but it's also like the messianic talk that he's having here is not like we're going to bring about the Gog and Magog like Iranian war, like that. You know, like this isn't some like 36 years ago.
Says
the two of them were plotting.
Hasidim do everything with joy, and like the Rebbe's entire being was about life and goodness.
Well, right, but it's also not. It's not about war, like. And like, right, it's not about any of that stuff. Like, it's very typical language for the Rebbe, and it's about like, there's still a lot of work to do, and that work is spiritual work. I mean, I think he's telling him that work is spiritual work that you can still do. Like, there's still time today, like that day in whatever in November 1990, to do like a mitzvah. Like that to me is what like, and you can still like I think that's what he's telling him. But the way that this is being read by others is like very different.
What was the Rebbe supposedly telling him? What are they reading into it?
They're reading it as basically that this has been a plot between Chabad, to Carlson's point, this has been a plot between Chabad and Netanyahu from the beginning to bring about an eschatological war, because they're reading it from a Christian like their fear of Christian nationalism, and then they're taking that lens and applying it.
No. I mean, yeah, it is to bring about. Well, I mean, this is the normal thing, which is ignorant Christians don't know that Maranatha means that Christians want Jesus to come back and want the apocalypse and revelation. But yeah, what can you do when we know more about Christianity than Tucker Carlson, who goes around professing to be Christian?
He's trying. You can take that both ways.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to put it that way, but yes, I think there's a lot of ignorance around this clip and any of these clips, and understanding the interplay and interrelationship of religion and religious and rabbis and their interplay with Israeli politics is really complicated. And there's a lot of context. And as you can tell, if anyone was just listening to this whole thing, like this is like unpacking like one moment, like it's 6 months in 1990. But like Israeli politics are extremely unstable and always have been.
Okay.
In fact, right now is probably the most stable period it's been for a while.
I am so tempted to show this clip that's on the internet and I've shown to several people, and I wonder how the Groypers haven't cottoned onto it yet. That like once they do, they will lose their effing minds. I'll show you privately, Yosef, one day.
You could show me as well if you want. Drop it in the private chat. So my wife's reading the New Testament at the moment, and she said to me, "What does this line mean? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And here's the right answer. I have no idea.
So I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a paraphrase from the Psalms. I think I've done a whole thing on this verse before. I'd have to look up in the archives when I did my deep dive. I don't have it on top of my head.
What does Groypers mean? What is that?
They're the fans of Nick Fuentes.
Yeah, but there must be a root to the word.
Oh,
I don't know.
I assume it's like it's an older one. I always assumed it was a 4chan word, but that's a question for people who hang out there. I have no idea.
Anyone in the chat?
Don't know.
Okay, here.
It's
so
just
yeah.
weird.
So
Suddenly this word appeared out of nowhere, and I'm like, Everyone's talking about groypers, and I'm like, what?
It just means fans of Nick Fuentes.
Okay. So to this verse, which is more probably important than groyper, hopefully much more important than groypers. So this phrase "poor in spirit," we have like, or "poor and contrite in spirit," comes up a couple times in Isaiah, comes up in Psalms. It seems close. I mean, the closest usage probably. I mean, there's three.
Sorry,
three or
can
four,
I pause you? He's talking about blessed are the poor in spirit, and how it's referenced in the Bible in different ways. So maybe you want to tune in. Okay, she's listening. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So the poor in spirit. It's in Isaiah 57:15 and then 66:2. So in the end section of Isaiah, he uses this phrase a lot. It's usually, you can translate it different ways. In Hebrew, it's probably closer to like contrite and lowly, but it's very similar. But it is also translated as poor in spirit in other places. I think the closest use is in Psalms. This is probably the one that I somewhere talked about. So at the end of Psalm 34, depending on your version of Psalms, it's either 18 or 19, because I know there's differences in numbering here. That it says, God, Karov Hashem Lishprei Lev. So God is close to those with broken hearts, and those who are low or poor in spirit, he will save. So I think that's probably the closest uses. It doesn't say blessed, but it's saying, God is near them. So I guess what's the blessed are poor in spirit? Actually, if you really want to get into it, that phrasing, I believe, appears in the War Scroll at Qumran. So they take this psalm and they make it into a blessing, and then that blessing appears again in the gospel, right? That's in the Beatitudes or something, right? That line. So it's one of these like verses that seems to have passed through the Essenes and like seems to have their imprint. There's a number of verses like this in the New Testament where that we point to as like evidence for influence. But yeah, so I guess what's get to the question. I guess like what's the core of the question here? Like what this line means as a blessing.
Well, the way I thought about it for a week, and I chatted with a few people, and I understood it to mean, blessed are those who love. And in love, you will go through pain and you will go through difficult stuff. And I gave an example of this. I said, because my father-in-law recently died, and his portrait is opposite me. You can only mourn if you love someone. If you don't love them, you can't mourn them. It's technically impossible. So I use that as an example. And the guy I was chatting to said, that's actually the next line in the Beatitudes. Blessed are those in mourning, for they shall be comforted. And I'm like, okay, I think this line is all about being capable of love and to love and knowing it's painful, but you do it anyway. And if you love, you're already in the kingdom of heaven. So I don't know if you guys want to chew on that at all.
Yeah. So that's an interesting read. I'm looking at it now in Greek because I was curious.
TLC is so cool.
I'm wondering if are the three things. So my theory, and I've had this theory actually since when I first came into TLC, is the Beatitudes are actually meant. He's on a mountain and he's saying these blessings, and I actually think he's trying to replicate something like the blessings and curses on Gerizim and Eval, right? In the book of Joshua when they come in.
I'm not well read with the Bible, so
in either in Numbers or Deuteronomy, God says when you go into the land, I think it's Deuteronomy, you're going to the tribes are going to split 6 and 6. And in the middle are going to stand the priests in the valley between these two mountains of Gerizim and Eval. In modern, but actually by the time of the Crusades, and now they're called the Hordens of Haddon because there's two mountains across from each other. But they're really two separate mountains. And Gerizim is where the Samaritans have their temple because that's the mountain of blessing, and Eval was the mountain of curses. And basically, what they pronounce blessings and curses of the covenant standing on these mountains when they come into the land. These 6 tribes and 6 tribes, and then everyone answers Amen after them. And what's weird though is that God says you're going to do the blessings and curses, but then they only list the curses. And there's a whole question of like, what are the blessings? So some people say the blessings are not listed, like they're part of the oral tradition. Some people say they're actually just the inverse of the curses. There's like a whole discussion about that. But there was an idea where people would actually write their own version of the blessings, so the missing blessings. We have a scroll from the Judean desert that talks about this. To me, that's what Jesus is doing, is he's doing the blessings. He doesn't say he's on Gerizim, and in fact, it sounds like he's in the Galilee, so he's not actually technically in the right place, but like symbolically, I think that's what he's trying to do. Now, the question is, with these verses, are they meant, and this is like the blessings of like 3, 4, and 5, so are they meant to be the same, talking about the same thing or different things? Like that's kind of the core question. In the Hebrew, if I was to talk about like being Nitzkev, Ruach, and Nishbrei Lev, that's more like depression, oppression, like people who are like have been broken by life and are suffering in that way. And it's not necessarily from love, but like just this other mental anguish and suffering. So if at that, I would take that reading if I thought 3, 4, and 5 were talking about different things. I could also think, though, maybe to your reading that they're actually talking about the same thing. 5 is also from the Psalms. Blessed are the meek or gentle, or it's anavim. It's in the Hebrew, so we would use it as the humble. And there is also something different here. So like you have these 3 groups that are blessed. And they're each blessed with something a little bit different, right? So you have one that's blessed by the kingdom of heaven, one that's being blessed because they'll be comforted, one that's being blessed because they'll inherit the earth. So that's kind of interesting because that means that there might be some difference. There seems to be some difference on like how each of them are healed. And they each are healed with like what they need. So the mourners get comfort. Those who are humble and like don't make claims on people, right? And like don't, like they're the ones who inherit earth, right? And that's like a much more material thing. Also like the poor, anavim also means poor. So like those who are actually poor will inherit material wealth. But then here the poor in spirit are the ones who enter the kingdom, or because of them is the kingdom of the heavens, which is actually kind of interesting. It's not that they inherit the kingdom of heavens, but yeah, it doesn't use the word inherit like it does in verse 5, which is actually super interesting. Otan estin he basilia. Yeah, it's a cool verse. I'm not 100% sure what it means, but I'm tempted to say that one of the keys to understanding how it's different, why it's different, is how they are healed or comforted or whatever. Like how the second part of the verse, how the kingdom of heaven, it sounds like it exists. Not that they inherit the kingdom of heaven, but that it exists because of the poor in spirit, which is to me, like a much more enigmatic and sort of esoteric like thing to think about. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I don't have a full solution. That's where I'd kind of go with it.
Okay, I'm going to have to rewatch what you just said.
Yeah, well, I probably will too. I have no idea. Like, it's just off the top of my head, but I think there's a lot to unpack here. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it's translating Nidke Ruach in the Hebrew, and that's important also because there's Shari had quoted it earlier. The Psalm where David is where he says obedience. You want obedience more than sacrifice. I think that's also part of it, is where he feels broken in a specific way. Oh shoot! I'm getting a phone call. For now. I don't know. Jacob, do you have thoughts on this verse?
Not really. I don't find it to be as surprising or as interesting. Like it's by far not the most interesting thing I think Jesus says in the Gospels, because I find his parables interesting. So like rabbis going around saying blessed, 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 like that's like boring. I expect rabbis talking about blessed are, like, yeah. So, and we have a Kirk.
A wild Kirk has appeared.
He has. How you doing, Kirk?
I'm doing well. I was really appreciating Yosef's explanation. Mark, to my understanding, is a Christian, and are you exploring Judaism or?
Why does everyone want to label me? You can call me a Christian. I'm fine with that.
Yoav.
I don't know what I am.
Okay.
I'm exploring Christianity, really, and Judaism is a big part of that. I do have a question, because I lived in a Jewish area of London for 7 years, 8 years.
Golders Green? Okay.
Yeah, Golders Green.
Yeah.
Really, it was a really nice place to live at the time.
It was. I lived there too. Great neighborhood.
Yeah. But I discovered that the Jewish identity is contained in the mother.
True.
Mm-hmm.
But you have the 12 tribes of Israel that's based on the sons of Israel.
Okay, so tribal affiliation is through the father. Being a member of the nation of Israel is through either adoption or through your mother. So it is possible if you, example, I think this is what was going on with Timothy in the letters of Paul. You can have somebody who is from a Jewish mother and a Gentile father, and some people, like the Sadducees and the Samaritans, I believe, would say, "Oh, then that person isn't part of our nation at all because they're not part of any tribe." Whereas the Pharisaic view is that while a person may not be a part of any particular tribe, they are still a member of Israel.
And when you say adoption, you mean conversion?
Yeah. Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
I've also heard that there is an idea for within Judaism that a minor can convert with the rabbi and it can be expedited.
So it is possible to convert a minor, kind of, but what happens is that when on basically the day of their majority, they are informed that and there are people who specialize in doing this, that if they just wanted to, they could decide to not be Jewish because they never consented. And usually they're given a couple of hours to decide, which can be quite stressful for your average 12-year-old girl or 13-year-old boy. But usually this is the case when parents convert, and their kids convert with them. But when the child becomes bar or bat mitzvah, they have to be made aware that they have to say whether or not they want to be Jewish, and if they do not renounce their conversion, they're stuck forever.
Yoav, good to see you. How are you?
Hi. Well, I just joined, missed, I guess, the party. I guess a lot has been going on and I missed it.
I am actually thinking maybe we will go back and finish listening to our dear friend Mr. Hedges talk about everything he knows nothing about. Since you're here,
it's worth doing because it makes Jacob go on a rant, which just amuses me.
Jacob's good at rants.
Supply shock in decades. This energy crisis will only get worse.
This energy crisis will only get worse. Now, what happens if he's wrong? Will he ever apologize? No, he will not. What?
To whom?
Well, to his
he has
to the million people who apparently have watched this.
Yeah, but if he doesn't insult anybody, then let him talk.
Nobody said he shouldn't talk. He can talk. Okay. He may talk.
Yeah, so there's nobody to apologize to. I mean, if anybody's taking him seriously, that's
their problem. Yeah, okay, yeah. It's true, but yeah, people apparently are taking him seriously. Okay, let's listen to more of his drivel.
Degraded the region's military infrastructure, taking out sophisticated U.S.
So Iran has degraded the U.S. military infrastructure. Like,
that's a fact.
Okay. Radar stations in the Gulf and in Israel. This has left the U.S. and Israel increasingly unable to track incoming missiles.
Israel and the United States are increasingly unable to track incoming missiles.
That's mathematically true, but I can assure you that I get a 10 minutes notice before every missile. As a matter of fact, I mean, I've seen it in my own eyes.
Iran has carried out successful strikes on U.S. bases.
Successful strikes on U.S. bases.
And ports, as well as energy infrastructure, desalination plants, and diplomatic compounds.
By the way, attacking desalination plants is a crime, is a war crime. It's just a pure war crime. Unfortunately, the U.S. apparently has hit desalination plants in Iran, but that's deliberately hitting desalination plants is a war crime.
Sorry, I got to pull. The idea of a war crime is an absurdity.
No, it's not.
Is it just me? It's like
yes, it's just you. No,
the whole
okay.
war thing is a crime. You're saying, oh, you can do war, but if you do this in war, it's a crime. And I'm like,
the Bible very clearly the Bible very clearly sets out rules. For example, you shall not cut down fruit trees in war. And that is where the Christian ideas of the laws of war and proper behavior during war comes from. And I agree with it. Obviously, most of the world doesn't live by Judeo-Christian values, including Chris Hedges.
Right. So, let's back up a second. The idea of some sort of war crime, or that there's rules for war or just war theory, exists across basically every major civilization that's done war. And that's kind of an interesting convergence. And a lot of them mostly match up, not fully, but like there are rules for war in Indian traditions, in Chinese, in Muslim, in pre-Muslim Arabian society.
Did the Romans and
the Jews? So the Greeks and Romans do have some rules for war.
Like what?
So it depends on different Greek city-states sort of have their own thing, but in the Peloponnese, like they seem to have like some standards of what is permissible and what's not. This comes to a head, I think, in the Persian Wars, because the Persians don't have the same rules as the Greeks at the first time they come into contact, and eventually they sort of converge, if I remember my Herodotus and stuff correctly. But so I don't think that this should not be a crazy idea. Like this is a known and established and like ancient idea that everyone has. In the Middle Ages, the Muslim Catholic and Jewish kind of theories of just war sort of develop in tandem with each other and a bit of in conversation with each other. So they're not hugely different. A lot of modern just war theory is based on the Catholic tradition. But the reason that like the UN could agree on like war conventions and have treaties, the international treaties on like the various Geneva conventions or whatever, is because there's these traditions are mostly convergent, and people from all these different countries, when these countries are much more traditional, 70, 80, 90 years ago, could actually agree on these things, which is kind of amazing. Now, like this entire framework has mostly been lost, and technology massively changes kind of how maybe the trade-offs are made for some of like the determinations of proportional and stuff like that. But I think these theories are actually pretty strong and robust, and like we can talk about their ethics. But unless you're coming from a purely pacifist kind of Anabaptist tradition, or there's a couple other pacifist traditions in the Abrahamic faith, whatever, like having a theory for like what makes sense for war and what etiquette should look like and how you treat POWs or how you know what civilians versus soldiers, like those, they make a lot of sense. Both parts, like to just war theory, like divides like what are grounds for war, right, versus like ethics in war, like what
pragmatically, right?
It's very
so
yeah.
The fact is that there is no reasonable person who believes the United States is better off for having bombed that school full of little schoolgirls, right? Like, and so if the United States had deliberately done that, by every evaluation of ethics, that would have been dumb, stupid, and wrong.
Can I give you a quote?
Sure.
This is from. Okay, it says during the civil war between Sulla and Marius, Pompey besieged the town of Messina in Sicily. The Roman governor protested that the siege was illegal under Roman law. Pompey said, "Stop quoting laws to us. We carry swords." And that's it. I'm sorry.
No war in history has been like Yosef says. I thought the like this was came out of Christian and Middle Eastern. I didn't know that like Hammurabi's code had wars, the laws of wars and stuff. But yeah, it's simply not a reality that wars don't. You can do whatever you want during a war, and in practice. No, but in practice, I mean, people also commit murder and rape, right? But that the law is the fact that there is an expectation of certain behavior, and that there usually is an actual punishment and repercussions for certain behavior. And in those terms, yeah, we have prosecuted war crimes. And usually it's the victor doing it on the people who aren't. But like, there's a narrative that came out of the 70s with people seeing things that they never had an opportunity to see before, which is actually like videotape and being able to see wars in ways they weren't able to see before. That has caused, I feel, a kind of tailspin in Western morality where people are just too shocked by the reality of war to actually contemplate the idea of living within war, because it's not real to you. But once you're a soldier in a war, obviously you like do I just kill everyone? And if you're going to maintain your sanity after the war, no, you don't.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of ties into. I know you've mentioned like Ayn Rand in the past, and this kind of ties into one of her students, Leonard Peikoff, I think is his name. He had this lecture called "The Picture's Not an Argument," where he talks about the fallacy of using emotional appeal in political arguments. So
Yeah, I mean, so the hyper rationalists, including Peikoff, and most objectivists who are Rand fans, find Peikoff to be too much of a rationalist. But let's not go off on there. I want to finish ranting about Chris Hedges saying stupid things.
I have a comment about that.
Yeah.
Chris Hedges. There was this very expensive radar, and it was very useful, and it was destroyed by the Iranian, and it is did. It will be very expensive to replace. The point is, there will never be a need to replace it. I mean, expensive as it was, that was sunk cost. And it is served its purpose, and you cannot move it anywhere else. So it was a one-off tool, served its purpose, and doesn't matter that it is gone.
Just a word of warning to everybody on and anyone who comes on. If your mic is loud, sometimes I will mute you. You are always able to unmute yourself. I am not able to unmute you if you mute yourself, but that's how StreamYard works. And let's keep on going with Chris Hedges.
The longer the war continues and Iran shows no signs that it is interested in negotiations, the more...
This is true. Iran shows no signs that it is interested in negotiations. This may be the only actual important piece of information that he supposedly imparts in this speech.
It erodes the security arrangements in the Gulf, ones built on the premise that America will protect the Gulf countries from Iran in the event of a conflict. The Trump administration has no...
Okay, so attacking... And I don't understand. I mean, maybe this was recorded before the Security Council resolution, but someone like John Mearsheimer and Chris Hedges, people who actually believe in the UN Security Council, and anyone who's paying attention to international relations has to understand that Security Council... There's a reason nobody on the left is talking about the Security Council resolution. It absolutely destroys what they have been saying. Iran made a huge mistake, and that's what Pezeshkian realized, and he tried to say that, and the IRGC shut him up. And so, no, Iran attacking its Arab neighbors was idiotic. Absolutely idiotic.
No clear goals for the war other than the unrealistic calls for unconditional surrender and bombastic threats. It has clearly made a terrible miscalculation.
Terrible.
About what the U.S. could achieve.
Bombastic as in bombs.
The funny thing is, if you're talking about bombastic declarations and you're not talking about all of the bombastic declarations that Iran has been making for decades now, Trump doesn't hold a candle to the bombast of the Ayatollahs.
Killing the top leaders in Iran, including the supreme leader. This war, as it drags on with no discernible exit strategy, has the potential to see the U.S. forced, as the global economy goes into crisis, to meet Iranian demands.
What Iranian demands? What Iranian demands? What are you talking about? What is Iran going to demand other than stop killing us?
Humiliating defeat would potentially mean the end of U.S. hegemony in the region.
The end of U.S. hegemony. That's not what.
That's a logically true sentence. A defeat would have meant the end of the U.S. hegemony.
Yes, if my aunt had male genitalia, she would be my uncle. Yes.
Joining me to
I don't know.
discuss
I don't
the
know.
war-
With Persian family pronouns, I cannot say.
I first encountered that in Hemingway in Spanish. Si mi tía tuviera cojones, sería mi tío. Yeah, it is a saying. Some people say there are less crude ways of saying it, but yeah, if true. Yeah, I don't know how much further we want to go on this, but like pretending that the United States is losing this war is just plain idiocy.
So I had a question. It's actually maybe more for Yoav than Jacob, but I'm curious. So you were talking earlier about when people encountered actual footage of war, whether it was Vietnam or actually I might even say earlier with some of the firebombing of Dresden and like some of these videos of at least the destruction, if not live combat, it made people very afraid of actually engaging in this world of war, and they didn't want to imagine being in a world of war anymore. Now, this is interesting because yesterday we were talking a little bit about in VOM, a little bit about the difference between kind of like the American left and the Israeli left. And my impression, and I want to test this idea, is that a lot of like people on the Israeli left have served in the military, a lot of them, right? Like the men have served in the military. They know what war is like. Many of them have been through many wars, and they are part of the peace movement of the left was specifically fueled by we don't want to engage in these wars anymore because of the trauma of these wars. And obviously the American left or most other Western nations are completely different, right? They don't actually have the experience of war and that trauma informing them. And yet we can also say like part of the movement is in fact fueled by like the media representation of that trauma and kind of amplifying it in different ways. So I'm curious about this. Like, on the one hand, yes, maybe like people who don't actually live in war don't really know what it's like. You know, they're being shown these things and they're just like too afraid to think about it. But on the other hand, like people who have actually lived through it also kind of don't want to engage in it at times. A good subset, not all, but like whatever percentage it is, 30, 40, 50%, like are also like really not interested in like they know how bad it is in real life and like they've experienced it, and maybe that's better grounded, maybe that's better feedback in the feedback loops of reality and reality testing, but like ultimately like they come to the same conclusion. So I'm hesitant to just like
I wouldn't say they come to the exact same conclusion at all. I think there is a conclusion that people come to when they have an idealistic view which causes them to imagine that they could live in a world without war, which is very different from the more realistic and more real view that somebody who's actually experienced war and understands, oh, you know what? There are times when you have to kill people. And I would hope everyone retains a distaste for killing people, although some people don't, right? But there has to be a realization that you live in a world where war is necessary and real, and you can't wish it away. I always keep on flashing back to a interview that Benjamin Boyce did with this feminist, and she kept on saying, I want to live in a world without rape. Is that too much to ask? As if the answer to that wasn't obviously, yes, that is too much to ask. No nation in history has been able to create a society, and there's no way we can create a society without rape. And any adult who doesn't understand that is just like, I'm sorry, you're just too childish to be living in the world with the rest of us.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of that person who Hezi debated a while back, who said there's no civilian casualties were acceptable during war or something like that. I don't know. If you
Yeah,
remember.
the not comedian Smith, whatever his name is.
I think so. Maybe, yeah. But I mean, yeah, these people are delusional, and what can you do, though?
Yeah, but I thought Joseph said that he was going to ask me a question. What was the question?
Okay.
Can I sing a John Lennon song?
Sorry.
Imagine there's no whatever. Bless him.
Thanks, you, Mark. So I
He
mean,
had
so
a
this
lovely imagination, and yeah, that would be great. I'd love that. That would be awesome. It's just not reality.
Okay, so since there was no question,
No, I have a question. I just I'd let Mark sing a little bit there. My question is like, do you see and feel that they're really and there's an acceptance of pragmatism here, right? Like obviously Jacob and Kirk and Mark, right? They're saying like this is idealistic, and that there's like a real, like people have experienced this. Like there's a pragmatism that is less idealistic. But do you think the Israeli left and the pro-peace movement really was less idealistic, and like was their experience really rooted in the acceptance of like war is inevitable, but like it's a different, we have a different approach that's not the right's approach to how to do peace in a world that accepts that there's going to be some level of war? Or is that really not how to describe it?
Okay. My statement is that in terms of declarations of statements, there is absolutely no distinction between the American left and the Israeli left. The same, whatever we just heard, there is no exit strategy. There's no way we can win the war. Losing the war will just make the situation even worse. There's no way that Iran will ever give up. While we're doing the war, we are committing war crimes. We should stop the war in order to stop the war crimes. We should put on trial those people among us who has committed war crimes. All those statements you can hear every day under channel 12 on television, in almost any newspaper. While when it comes to actually taking up your gun and going to war, the Israeli left is as efficient as the Israeli right. Because I think it's obvious, like in this war that started in the 6th of October, it's obvious it's either you pick your gun and fight or you and your family are dead. So statements do not enter into it. Now, what Jacob said about the tailspin of the Western peace values, that has crashed to the ground yesterday. If you remember, there was 2 years ago, I think, there was an allegation of rape. Israeli jailers have been accused of raping an inmate, and they were being prosecuted, and videos showing such deeds were leaked and were presented all over the world. And yesterday, the case was dropped. And the case was dropped because there was never any basis. It didn't happen. There was never any proof of that. It has been proved that the prosecution have forged evidence and leaked the forged evidence to the press, causing Israel huge public relation damage, unrecoverable. So those sort of 10 people, after 2 years of nightmare, are now free to go and try to reconstitute their lives. Some of them have divorced Everybody lost their jobs. The people have that falsely accused them, and that has been proved that it was a false accusation, will never get to jail. And this is the moment when the peacenik values hit the ground in flames. And now you must accuse me because I'm going to hit the ground in flames in 10 minutes if I don't go into the shelter.
Yeah.
Goodbye, Yoav.
Be safe. Be well. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Seriously though, shalom. Like, yeah. Oh man. Yeah, they might be, but clearly there are also missiles coming in over Yoav's head here. So.
I think those missiles are more from Hezbollah in Lebanon than they are from.
Probably
from
true.
Yeah. And Hezbollah is getting more and more desperate. I mean, I did not expect Lebanon to turn on Hezbollah as much as it has.
But they haven't actually done anything. They just said they are. They haven't. It doesn't seem to be actually doing anything about it.
That's a lot more than they used to do.
Yeah, I know. But as we all just said, words only mean so much in these cases.
True, but there's an element of saving face. This is why I put so much emphasis on the Security Council resolution. In order to maintain certain narratives, you have to get people to kowtow to them and allow you to talk about it and say it, right? So or not allow people to tell the truth. And that is in Lebanon for a politician to say we need to get rid of Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a foreign occupation army in Lebanon. That was a death sentence. At the very least, it's not a death sentence. And I think this is what part of what you're seeing is as you make it less and less possible for oppressive forces to keep people silent, you're going to see more and more people speaking out. And look, part of me is waiting to see when Pahlavi, he's got to do it before Nowruz, which is this week. When Pahlavi says, okay, now is the time for people to pour into this streets of Tehran. And at that time, there better be a lot of drones over Tehran that aren't being even fired at by anyone, which that's going to take a lot of doing. I honestly don't have any clue what kind of technology is being used to effectuate what is happening right now in Iran.
Yeah, I'll say. So I know a lot of the eschatological stuff bothers me. People framing this as Gog and Magog or using that clip of Bibi and the Rebbe. I also found out that Khomeini has a sermon where he preaches about the Mahdi killing Dajjal on Nowruz. And like this is a very important eschatological point, like in kind of modern Shia thought. That he's not the only one who came up with it. He's not the originator of this idea.
Really?
But
I
that's
didn't know this.
super. But it makes this an potentially eschatological war for the Shia in a way that I had not realized before until I came across this. When I tried to look at the original,
definitely an eschatological war. Like Israel, if the people in the Israeli government and hopefully the U.S. government, but at least the Israeli government who started this didn't realize they were doing it on Ramadan, where
Ramadan, I understand. Yeah.
What with Eid al-Fitr falling on Nowruz? I don't know what they were doing.
This is where I was thinking, like, so many people, especially kind of American Christians, are thinking about like Purim, like these connections, and Jews too with Shabbat Zachor.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there's this whole other side of how like the Muslim eschatological kind of reading of what's going on here that like I don't think most people are even like I wasn't aware of until I happened to come across this.
Apparently Khamenei said this in 2018.
Like I said, it's a Khamenei. Yeah.
I thought you said Khomeini. Sorry.
No. Sorry.
Okay.
My pronunciation of Iranian is not great. No, Farsi isn't great.
So Khamenei and Khomeini share very few vowels.
That's true. I have to lengthen Khamenei at the end better, right? That's the problem.
Yeah, and it's Khamenei and Khomeini. Kha and Kho are very different in Farsi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Khamenei. It's anyway, it was just a little fascinating tidbit of like I knew the Ramadan thing I understood. I had not understood there was another level to this around the Mahdi and Dajjal. And that's a different level of intensity. In many ways.
Yeah, I had never heard of this, but yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I also, I mean, if only we were aware of Mujtaba's actual condition, it is possible that he's comatose. He might even die and Iran won't say anything for a while because they don't have I don't think they have a viable candidate waiting in the wings, which is why I was hoping Mujtaba would get killed, not his father. But yeah. Someone, I can't remember who said the reason Iran having nukes is different from everyone else is that they will deliberately use them to bring the eschaton, not hold as a deterrent. Yep. Young God says, why did God allow Persians to exist in the first place? They are so evil. I hope I'm not so evil. I try not to be.
The Talmud has many praises for Persians. Right? It has a whole list of all the good things about Persians. It tries to find things.
Well, hopefully I meet some of the good things about Persians in the Talmud. Yeah. No, I mean, I seriously do think that 80% numbers are probably correct. There's every indication that some 20% of people, I think Young God was being sarcastic, Mark.
Sure.
As he often is. But I think the 20%, the idea that there's 20% who really want the Islamic regime to continue is probably accurate. You destroyed your squeaky toy. It doesn't squeak anymore.
But here's I think where the question of maybe this is where Paul Vanderklay probably would appreciate it is like in a world. This is also the question for Israel actively, right? In a world or in parts of the West, specifically within the kind of right-wing circles of the West, but also some of the left-wing ones that are like becoming much more anti-liberalism and want people to return to religion and are thinking about how you might incorporate religion into governance and like theocracies even. And yet we want these other countries, maybe either Israel or Iran, to be less theocratic, to be more liberal. Like, and what is the goal there? Is it like, this is for me, but not for you? Like what? There seems to be some sort of inconsistency or incoherency, or at least not. There's not something that's like a good solution, unless unless you are for a liberal solution here, like a classically liberal solution, right?
I keep on emphasizing that Iran's history is marked by decades, not by years. And I keep on like pointing out that Iranians are not focused on who the president is for 4 years, right? I think Iran will need a monarchic figure. Now, if that monarchic figure is like the monarchy that exists in the UK as opposed to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, right? I think like that's more democratic and better. The problem is Americans can't seem to understand the value of a monarchy at all. And when your history is as long as Iran's is, I really think you have to have a monarchy, some form of monarchy. And that's why the Velayat Faqih keeps on, I mean, it basically is, the theocracy is a monarchy. And hopefully you have a monarch who knows his place and stays in his place and maintains the role as head of state that is different from head of government.
Oops, I was muted. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think you could, in some ways, I mean, it's not a monarchy, but like Netanyahu's super long period as prime minister, or a number of other examples we could give, sort of gives that same stability. But of course, it's not a guaranteed stability because the government could always have a new election at any time and it could collapse, right? So it's not, but like there are people there are systems that have figured out, at least for some periods, how to have very stable kind of democratically elected leaders. But I think you're right. Like probably they're not ready for that, probably, honestly, like to some degree. And it's not like the Parliament of Israel is like a role model for how to govern anything.
Yeah, the government of Israel, known for its stability and clarity and
right, exactly. Like, but what government would you hold up? You know, that's
the British.
The Parliament is, yeah, it's more effective than our House or Senate are. It's actually, but its problems are different than ours, I think. But I hear that. I actually do need to go. I've been on way too long.
You have it.
And this is
Shabbat shalom, Yosef.
And,
be safe. Don't do anything we would do.
More for me, just stay healthy. Okay.
Be healthy. That too. Okay, Kirk. Pontificate. What is the world going to be like?
So I think that, I mean, and I don't know much about the situation, so take this with a grain of salt, but my perspective is that soon, and by soon I mean several months, the war is going to end, and I think a new regime is going to occur in Iran, but I have no clue what that looks like. That's all I can say right now.
I think whatever is here in whatever exists in 6 months is going to be very, very similar in its essence to the current regime. But that doesn't mean its policies are going to be the same. The constitution of Iran is going to be that of a sort of monarchy in any case. That's what it is under the theocracy right now, and that's what it would be under a restoration of the Pahlavi dynasty, and that's what it would be like if somehow Hassan Khomeini takes over. But the question ends up being what the policies are going to be and how those policies are formulated, and who the king is in that monarchy. And I don't think we know a lot about that. Okay, how many people are watching? There are some 10 people watching. I am considering ending the stream, especially is Rigel still or Nigel or whatever his name is. I think I looked up his channel. There he is. Oh, wow. Everybody's over there talking with them. People care about them more than they care about me. Oh, fine. Be like that. Okay. I'm going to let them have their discussion. Maybe I'll go on there.
What's the name of the channel?
It's Rigel Windsong Thurston.
Okay.
Yeah, so I am going to end this stream.
Go ahead.
رضا پهلوی وارث تاج ایران، انتظارمون روز شاهیته، سرفرازیمون پادشاهیته. زن زندگی آزادی، مرد میهن آبادی، جاوید شاه، جاوید شاه. این ملت آزادی میخواد، به جای غم شادی میخواد، ایران آزاد شکوه دیرین میخواد. زن زندگی آزادی، مرد میهن آبادی، جاوید شاه، جاوید شاه. مردم ایران بازگشت تو را از خود میخوان، ایران آزاد میشه، شاه برمیگرده، این آخرین نبرده، پهلوی برمیگرده.
زن زندگی آزادی، مرد میهن آبادی،
جاوید شاه، جاوید شاه.
این آخرین نبرد، پهلوی برمیگرده.
جاوید شاه،
جاوید شاه.
پهلوی برمیگرده.
جاوید